Hello again, friends! And oh, good Lord, we are back here again with another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, another fun edition filled with who knows what. Perhaps we'll be able to get to questions today. You never know. But you will never know less than you do. There's some sort of way to get there. This could have been clean, but it's not. Here he is, I'm your host, the great Brian Last, but here's the star, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Oh, thank you very much for that handoff. Oh, great Brian Last, host of this program, mangler of the English language. I was just going to say at the start of the program, I've had a leisurely morning for once, a pleasant time. I'm in a reasonably optimistic mood about this show and the future. Well, I was about this show and the future in general. I'm feeling pretty chipper. Don't do anything to piss me off. And here you just word salad me a goddamn vomitorium of fucking verbiage that I'm now supposed to do something with as to make it a professional broadcast. You know, it don't take a lot of your gravy to go all over my plate, Brian Last.
I'm not a big gravy fan.
I'm not even going to get into it. You were repulsed by the breakfast picture I sent you the other day, but we'll talk about food some other time because I want to stay in a good mood, and you will wangle me. I've had a leisurely morning. You know, first thing when I got up, I went out.
You? What the hell did you say? I will.
I don't want to have to wrangle with you about this.
Oh, okay.
About the breakfasts and things and your weird food choices.
Nothing weird about it at all.
Anyway, I had a good morning. Doesn't that kills your whole day that I had a pleasant morning? I got up and I went out in the garage, said hello to the birds. That's right, plural. Because now I've discovered that it's two birds, Bertie Sanders and Bertie's significant other, I still don't know which is which, that are sharing the nest, so I'm optimistic that we'll get some baby chickadee birdies out there. I've got the seed over there, and of course we've had nothing but rain, so they've got plenty of water. It has rained every day this week, by the way. That's why at a pleasant morning it didn't rain. But congratulations to the folks down outside of Nashville. I understand they got almost 10 inches of rain in 24 hours on the storm that went to the south of us, and we were happy to not see it arrive. So congratulations, Nashville. Hopefully you won't be in a drought in the next 3 years. Anyway, after I said hello to the birds, Brian, then I went and I did my errands, my morning errands. I try to be back in the house by 10:30 a.m. because that's when the really stupid people start going out in public. And I plan my route so that I make the most optimistic use of my time and travel distance. And I'll have you know, because I know a parking lot that I can cut through and save one light. And I'll have you know that I was able to go and get the mail at the post office, have a check cashed at the bank drive-thru, go to Kroger, and go to Paul's Market for the gourmet items for the upcoming Mother's Day weekend festivities, and drop one of Harley Quinn's prescriptions off at the pharmacy, all within 1 hour and 20 minutes on a 4.9-mile round trip. How about them apples?
Is that impressive? I don't know.
Oh, come on.
Is it the mileage? What am I supposed to be impressed with here?
You live in New Jersey. How long does it take you to get in and out of places?
What place?
Any place. Your place, Archie Bunker's place. I don't know. Anybody, how long does it take you to go to these various different stores and businesses and conduct your business there and traverse the highways up there with them turnpikes and them parkways? You can't do 6 different stores in an hour and 20 minutes under 5-mile round trip.
Again, maybe you've been in the wrong parts of Jersey. Under 5 miles? Well, actually, hold on. Under 5 miles, I could do a bunch of things. It may not be, Best Buy, but I can go to a bunch of stores and see a bunch of people and say hello to different members of the community in their places of establishment. Hello, Fred. Look at that bread roll, Bill. Oh, let's go to the bank. Hello, bank teller.
Yeah. Well, I always have pleasant conversations with my bank teller. She even said, well, if Harley's in the car with me, she sends out a milk bone through the drive-through thingy.
The other day, I had two options. I can go to the bank with the drive-through window, or I can go to the bank that was near the other place I was in, just walk right over into the place and use the ATM to deposit a check. The ATM's busted, so now I got to go in. Now I got to deal with the teller. I didn't have to. I said, okay, I'm here. I went this far. Let me go in. You think this would be quick? She puts the check through, the machine breaks. Whatever machine is hooked up to the computer is down. So now I'm just waiting. I was there 5 minutes. We ran out of things to awkwardly talk about. And then I left. I'm never going into the bank again. That bank.
So you can't even talk to this poor, belabored woman trying to do the best job she can there. You can't even talk to her and exchange pleasantries for 5 minutes without feeling awkward, Brian.
Because she knew that this was ridiculous. I was just trying to deposit a check. I shouldn't have to be in there for more than 5 minutes. And then she tried to go to, like, I don't even know if it's a sales pitch. She's like, do you have the app? Can you show me the app? I'm like, I have the app. You can take my word for it. I have the app on my phone. Well, I want to show you just in case there may be things you're not. So listen, I'm getting all the use out of the app I need. I don't need to do anything else with the app. I need the check deposited here. And it's too, here's the problem with the app. I can't deposit the check using the app because it's too big and there's a limit on that crap. Well, you're right. That's a problem. That's why you have to come deposit it here. Well, that's why I'm here still. Why'd you get me going on this? So
you couldn't use the app on the check that you were trying to deposit to begin with. Then why was she telling you to use the app?
No, it was just like a general, I don't know if she was going to give me like a mini course on how to use things on the app. Like I'm a bozo. Like I don't know this shit. But
you ought to see when they try to tell me to use an app. And then I have to explain to them that before I would use an app, I'd have to use one of those goddamn phones. And I'm here in person, so I don't have to do that. So there. Because I'm over here now.
You're the last holdout. It's like a Twilight Zone episode. Everything in society is pushing forward, and you're like, give me that old rotary.
I'm comfortable. But and here is I told a person the other day.
A person? Oh,
a person the other day.
Oh.
I can't remember. I speak to so few people. I'm trying to. I know who it was. It was the fucking handy fellow. The handy fellow.
Of course, the handy fellow.
The handy fellow that was doing some handiwork. I said, I measure your level of success by how hard you can make it for people to get a hold of you. And I'm a pretty successful fucking fellow.
What does that have to do with any of this?
The smartphone thing. Everybody goddamn glued on their phone. I go now, if I'll go to a doctor's appointment, or I'll be in a waiting room, or what, I'll see people 80 years old sitting there staring at their fucking phone like they can't goddamn. When you're running out of time anyway, what do you need to be up to date on what fucking's going on fucking Entertainment Tonight or whatever, or Facebook, or whatever you're goddamn doing on your fucking phone? Read a goddamn book, relax, listen to some fucking classic music one more time.
You could do that on your phone. They may be doing that, reading a book or listening to classic music on their phone.
They're sitting there with their fucking finger. Everybody just stares at it or pokes at it with their fucking finger.
Maybe they're playing a game. A lot of people like to use it to pass the time with fun games, whether it's Words with Friends or...
at their goddamn faces. The looks on their faces, they're not having that much fun. They're fucking bored sitting there staring at their fucking phone. If I'm going to...
You want them to be smiling? That's the other thing. You want just reaction?
If you're playing a game, what do you look like you're fucking having something shoved up your ass for?
What if you're concentrating? It could be a hard game. It could be like a missile command.
What do you want to play a hard game on a fucking 3-inch goddamn screen if you're fucking 70 years old, especially to begin with? You have poor eyesight. What the fuck? And God damn it, instead, I plan ahead and I take, because they used to have reading material in the doctor's office or the barbershop or whatever the fuck, where you could sit there, you had something to read. Now, no, there's nothing. There's dick all of shit. So I take books, magazines, periodicals. This week, when Stace has her dental work done, I'm taking a manuscript of a soon-to-be released bestseller about the wrestling business. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to read it. I guarantee you, I will be the only person reading anything on paper in that whole goddamn waiting room. That's how the sad state of affairs of things are today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other problem is there aren't as many periodicals as there used to be.
Well, periodically they still come out, and you could save them and nurture them.
Reading material at the barber shop. That was the word. I mean, yeah, Maxim and what was it, HFM, whatever the fuck those two magazines were. They were fine if you were a pervert or you just wanted like a quick hit or something. That's really what it was.
You're too modern. Back in the old days, kid, they had everything to read at the barber shop, and because all the little kiddies were coming in to get their hair cut, you need to keep those snot-nosed little fucking rugrats and crumb snatchers quiet.
They have comic books?
Comic books.
Really?
And my local barbershop, from the time that I was 7 years old until I reached the teenage years when I wanted to go to the more upscale place, right? And besides that,
the upscale place, yeah.
The upscale place, the start of the goddamn place where they'd even wash your hair first, too. Now, I'm talking about the barbershop where you sat in a fucking chair and there was Floyd with the scissors and the comb. But they had a policy. If you brought 2 comic books, you could take 1. And that way the kids could have the different fun. They could, without this barbershop owner having to actually go out and buy comic books, he always had comic books for the kids. But what I would do, since I was the serious comic book collector in the neighborhood and all the other kids were suckers, is I would take 2 Casper the Friendly Ghosts or 2 fucking, cheap Charlton comics or something or other and get the Marvels. Even if I already had them, because I knew that I could then turn around and either trade them or potentially sell them at the flea market for the blah, blah, blah. I got, for like 2 miscellaneous fucking Richie Rich comics, I know for a fact because I remember it and I just sold it several years ago, a very fine Tales of Suspense 58, Captain America Iron Man. And that alone, I can't remember, in the high hundreds of dollars for. So it was a gold mine there at the barbershop.
You were saying how it was a great place because you could read the magazines. Now you're twisting the story that it was a great place because you could steal the ones you wanted and sell them years later for a profit.
Well, I didn't know at the time. I just figured, hey, I'm getting Captain America and Iron Man, and I'm trading off goddamn hot stuff. The Little Devil.
Anyone who went in there who wasn't like 6 years old was disappointed in the comic book selection because of you.
Well, they should have got there first. That's one thing about when I was a kid, I got plenty of haircuts because that was an excuse to pick up comic books. And see, that had been on the stands 2 years before that, right? So they were still in good shape, but you weren't able to just buy them willy-nilly in the days before the internet.
All right, willy-nilly, another one of the comic books that Jim left at the doctor's office.
You know what you're not going to be able to buy willy-nilly, but you're soon going to be able to buy? Something extra special that we didn't think we was ever going to have, and the announcement is going to be made on this coming week's Jim Cornette Experience, the A Show. With that, we want to make the big announcements before the widest audience. But it's an announcement about something new coming in June to JimCornette.com, something unexpected coming to JimCornette.com, and also a way that we're going to raise another several $1,000s for a very worthy charity. So otherwise, for all the other stuff that we normally sell, you can go right now to JimCornette.com and buy every single solitary son of a bitch one of those things. Whether it be the T-shirts or the DVDs or the books or the magazines or the autographed pictures or the Cult of Cornette membership certificate, or without a shadow of a doubt, let's remember the Midnight Express action figure sets, tag team and 4-pack, and the Heavenly Bodies are right there also. You can do all that right now. Or you can choose what's behind door number 2 and tune in on the experience for the announcement of this special item. I can't even say item, plural. These special items that will be going on sale in just a few weeks. But that's just off the top of my head.
At JimCornette.com.
That's, I believe,
Is that what it's going to be? Off the top of your head, is it going to be hair? Are you going to be some strands of hair?
You know, here's the thing. Do you know what I found the other day? I swear to God, because it started with an accident and then it turned into a happy accident, because I was trying to move this old antique cabinet that my mom and dad had had since before I was even born. And the daggum leg came off it, just a little stumpy leg, but it's, I think these are hand hammered nails as you looked at it. So they just pulled out, so nothing broke. And I was able to have it put back on by the handy fellow. But in the process of taking all the stuff out of that, I found I don't know how to say it. It's not like my Jim Cornette glasses, because they were my goddamn glasses. I couldn't see without these goddamn things, but the glasses I wore when I first got into business as a manager on TBS, et cetera, et cetera. And they are fucking, when I retired them and got new ones, they were not condensation, but oxidization from all the sweat, all those hot buildings, the arenas that I was in. And not only I would sweat so bad that the glasses, the frames would turn my goddamn cheeks green, but also there's green gunk on the earpieces and around the lenses and everything.
Well, you were green behind the ears still.
Well, no, it's wet behind the ears and green around the gills.
Well, that's how messed up you were. You were green behind the ear.
Well, no, I didn't know my gills from my ears. Regardless, now you throw, but anyway, I found these glasses, and I'm thinking one of these days I will auction, if you want to have the ultimate Jim Cornette souvenir, the glasses off my face from the class. I've got all my glasses. I got my WWF glasses. I've got because I told you here a couple months ago, I just got new glasses for the first time in like 12 years. So I ended up finding where I'd stashed the old pairs that I've just replaced.
But how many did you go through in your active career? Because you were taking bumps. I mean, the glasses must have broken sometimes. Sometimes you didn't wear them to the ring. But how many pairs did you go through during your, let's say, from 82 to 96?
Well, probably about 3. Because such a schedule, and as you can tell, I'm not a person who likes to go to the fucking eye doctor often. Have people up in my grill. But I never wore them for house shows, because here's the thing: I knew whether most of the time whether I was going to be taking bumps or not, but I didn't know whether the fans were going to fucking pop me or not, right? So I never wore my glasses on house shows, and most of the time, if it was a TV taping in an arena setting, I wouldn't wear them either unless it was a really wide aisle, good security type of thing, whether I was taking bumps or not. Because a lot of people say, I knew when somebody was going to hit you because you didn't have your glasses on. But you can go back and find tons of things of me in arenas where I didn't have my glasses on, nobody touched me. It was whether not only I was going to be physically active, but whether the fans were going to have a decent shot, right? And that handicapped me somewhat in the big buildings, seeing the crowds, because I'm nearsighted, but I always could get by in the ring, whether I had my glasses on or not, or around the ring with doing what I needed to do. And then at the TV studio, because I wanted to be able to see those people individually, and nobody could, Then most of the time I would wear my glasses, because also I could see the camera tally lights better, and it was just more comfortable. Does that answer your question?
I think so, somewhat, yes.
But anyway, I was talking about, so I basically have the glasses that I wore at various stages, and it is incredible that even though I never actually, most time I wouldn't get them at the same place, right? Because you're moving around different places until I settled down here the last 20 years. So I would always just go in and pick whatever was closest to what I had. But it's amazing that there's been so little change throughout the past 40 years. because that's what I got used to looking in the mirror at. The last 2 or 3 sets have been the same, but you can still see the code numbers on them. Have been the same numbers, but the only time, and I threw these sumbitches away completely. In 19, it was 1985 because it was the first or second time I was in St. Louis. I had been talked into, I can't remember how, what salesperson, instead of frames where the metal went all the way around the lens, the bottom of the lens had it was like a fishing line in a groove in the lens that held it in. And they said, well, that won't turn your cheeks green when you sweat, right? And but then the goddamn line broke and the lens just fell out, and Linda Rufa, the photographer in St. Louis, got some dental floss and rigged it up for me so I could hold it so I could see to get back to fucking wherever. So fuck them. But otherwise, I got all my glasses. Who wants my glass? What am I bid for the fucking Cornette TBS era Midnight Express eyeglasses? You want to dress up as me on Halloween, complete with my DNA? All the green gunk in the corners and shit.
Oh.
Well, I sweated like a whore in church in those days.
Yeah, no, you got your perspiration problem under control now. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, wait a minute. Are you?
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying you've got things.
Yes, I'm pretty
under control.
Pretty under control now.
You only have to see a person every now and then, so.
Just every once in a while, I have to have those glands mashed, and I'm fine.
Well, Jim, we have a lot of things to talk about. Why don't we start with something that, something I saw, and everyone saw this, and their first thought was, what's Jim going to say about this? Something went up this week. I believe it's from Reddit. Someone in the AEW official group.
How official can they be if they're on Reddit?
Well, the headline says, Riho saying she made over 60 million yen, which is around $400,000.
God damn, well, there's a drop-off.
In AEW last year. Has anyone seen Riho's interview on TV Asahi's Pinkery? She was talking about...
What, Pinkery?
I don't know, Pinkiri.
In the Stinkery?
She was talking about visa issues that prevent her from coming to America right now, and she was also asked how the money is in AEW compared to Japan, and she revealed that she is making way more money than in her last Stardom run, saying that she made over 60 million yen in 2023, approximately $400,000, which is quite shocking, given that she has only wrestled like 10 times.
What the...
Good for her. But it seriously makes you think how AEW can afford those salaries. And again, this is what she said publicly. We don't know if it's true. We assume. Also they came out and immediately disputed when Okada was purported making $12 million. There was some pushback from AEW. Haven't seen any pushback about this right now, but the overall conversation about the salary structures in AEW, did you have any idea that Riho would be making something like this?
Well, now, let's just ask all kinds of questions here. Let's just start out with, if 60 million yen equals 400,000 American dollars, do they have a 1 yen note? And what the fuck does it buy?
And I guess millionaire as a term may not mean so much.
And then, so if Okada was going to make 12 million American dollars, what is that? 500 billion Japanese? How are the measurements so far off the beam in global finance these days? Commerce, whatever. Anyway, that's a couple questions. I mean, this is more in the realm of, gee, it could go either way. It could be true. It could not, rather than we figured the, several $1 million a year that they were banning around was because that was their top star that left the country or left the company basically to come to AEW. They had to make it look in the Japanese press like, he couldn't turn this down. And obviously Riho couldn't turn down $400,000 a year either. Is it, is that something that Tony would have done based on whoever's say so? Probably, maybe. It's not ridiculous, but at the same time, it could also be her saying, oh, well, maybe that's a little more than she made or considerable. If it's $200,000 and that's an unofficial count, the guy says she wrestled like 10 times. Do you think she could have wrestled more than 20 or 25? Even doing dark matches or YouTube or whatever when she comes and goes, comes and goes. And if it's a visa issue, that means she can probably only come over. Well, I may be exposing somebody's business here. If she can only stay a certain amount of time, like a few months at a time, she may be coming over as a visitor. Who would look at her in the airport and say, that's a wrestler? So she's safe there. But my God, does that mean if she's making half of that and she had 20 matches, then $200,000 for 20 matches, he's paying her 10 grand a match? It's getting a little bit more believable, although stupid.
One of the listeners in the Cult of Cornette group posted, Sean Jaramillo, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the fact that Riho can outdo my salary for an entire school year with 2 matches makes me sad.
What? And
that is insane. That if you said to me, what do you think Riho's making? I would say, you know what? Tony's a generous guy when it comes to the friends of the friends. 200. 225. It's ridiculous. Not worth it, but I could see it. $400,000 for Riho. Jeez. Unless it's like a base of $100,000 and she made $300,000 in amazing royalties that we're not aware of.
Yeah, and also, again, even though she's doing it with the Japanese press and the intention is to glorify yourself somewhat, if you're smart, she's probably not that smart that she'd want to lie in the press. She may be, but maybe that's it, including her, expense reimbursement to fly back and forth all the time from here to Japan. That he's also out, if that's not including that. And then, where in the world, lodging her? Do they get long-term studio apartment type of things for the international talent when they're over here for a while? Where would Riho stay in this fine country of ours?
I'll be at the Chateau Kenny.
Oh, I forgot. All right. But anyway, so at least that's not an expense. But
again, $400,000.
Yeah.
If this is true, and again, whether it's athletes, usually their agents do the talking. You don't see them doing it. Or actors, celebrities. Usually people don't want to talk about or confirm or make any declarative statements about how much money they're making publicly. You never really see that, right?
Well, again, when
The Rock's not doing that, we hear how much money he's making. That's the kind of guy you think would be bragging. Yeah, I'm getting all this money for pissing in bottles and doing whatever the fuck I want. But Riho's out there just saying this publicly. This is not someone reporting it in the press. This is her saying it.
Well, and again, the reason why I'm thinking it might not be ridiculously out of line is because this is 5 years on with this company, and I was talking to a number of people when in MLW that some that ended up in AEW and some that didn't, but they were in the locker room. They were talking about how much money that guys who had never been on television had some level of name and recognition in the indies, but had never been on TV, how much money they were being offered and accepting and signing for that was multiple times per show or multiple times per week what they were earning doing what they were. In other words, they would have gone for less, right? But that was before the company even officially debuted on television. So 5 years later, I'm sure salaries have risen, but these were 6-figure deals for people that had never had figure deals. So it's believable, unfortunately.
Jeez.
And some people out there go, well, he's against the talent. He doesn't want the wrestlers to prosper. There has to be some perspective. It was like that when Sal Corrente was doing those Legends reunions, the big giant wrestle reunion where everybody that ever wore tights was there. And of course, he had investors' money, which they ended up in court over the whole thing. Everybody, I told him, I said, I know that it's somebody else's money, but if you actually make some back, they will give you more. Right? That's I know that everybody deserves to make as much money as they can, that somebody will pay them. But when you look at from a business standpoint, from anybody who's ever been on the other end of the business besides being a talent, or for someone who has been responsible in big or small companies for dispensing the salaries or the grosses from the gates, or however the talent was paid, commensurate with their contribution to that money coming in, it's fucking crazy. It's if Riho could ride a Greyhound bus from Japan to come to the shows, it wouldn't be worth reimbursing her for the fucking ticket and her salary for what she actually contributes or does not contribute to the product. But anyway, I digress.
And what do you think now if you're one of the other talent on the roster who's not making that much? Whether it's Riho or anyone, someone who's never there, barely works, isn't a mover of numbers or merch. They tried to say that Riho was a big ratings mover. That was exposed in the last year. And that was, I guess, the limited time she was around. Remember, she just reappeared. They started running her out there in the main events, and then she was gone again. I guess these visa issues. How are they still having these visa issues 5 years into this with some of the talent?
Well, especially when it's been the same person for the past 5 years that is continuing to have a visa issue. Once you would think that would be settled, but again, it's not to pick on Riho because she may not move the ratings, she may not move the gates, she move the needles, she moves the bishop on a few strange people is about what she moves, but it's not limited to her. There are people there that I'm sure, well, we heard one of the people that got released also said he was working a second job so he could get him and his wife out of the shithole they lived in. So we know there are people that are on per event deals and not being used or ain't getting much money. But we've more heard the opposite end of the spectrum is that everybody that you hear from the time that they started the company has been signing for more money than they've made before, as I mentioned earlier, because they hadn't been involved in the big companies and major contracts, or there's people that are choosing AEW because they get approximately the same amount of money for much less work. Whether he's paying them slave wages or he's overpaying them, we've said a lot of people are making a lot of money and he's got hundreds of them. And that cannot fucking sustain itself as a business.
Hey, Jim, we are going to pick up this conversation shortly. We're going to take a short break just because there are some technical issues, some audio issues, so we're going to see what we can do about fixing them.
Oh, you're mad at my internet again.
Well, I'm not going to use the word mad or hate or really, really angry. I'm not going to use any of those words.
How about
pissed
disgusted?
Off, livid. I'm not going to say any of these things. What I am going to do is fix things for the good people listening to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this.
Oh, you were just looking for an excuse to play that thing.
I had a couple of options. It was time travel, and you'll be a little disoriented when we come around on the other side, or something happy and jovial to get us back in the mood. That good old mood.
Yeah. All right, you should have recorded you trying to tell me how to turn Skype off and turn it back on from scratch.
That was a fun 55 minutes.
I was playing Twister on the goddamn keyboard. Well, press Control and Delete and Alternate and whatever the fuck all at the same time. Left foot red.
Well, again, we're talking about $400,000 that's gone missing.
No, we weren't.
We weren't?
We know where it went, and we finished that discussion.
Oh.
I said it's ridiculous, is what it is.
Well,
We know where it went.
We do know where it went.
And we know that cleaning woman Clara Clifford discovered that kleptomaniac Claude Cooper from Cleveland is the one who copped the clean copper clappers that were kept in the closet at the Acme School Bell Company.
And we have that going for us as well. Jim, this show's been a train wreck so far. We haven't even gotten to Dynamite.
It's your program.
On the road to Dynamite, I'll admit it right here, I did not watch Raw, so we'll get your Raw thoughts in a moment. Why don't we continue on the happy talk train here? Or at least something that may make you happy because it involves you. Dark Side of the Ring, their final episode of Season 5. Black Saturday, a topic that has fascinated a lot of people for many years.
Many, many years. You sound like fucking Joe Franklin now. It's been fascinating for many years now.
You were fantastic on here. On episodes where you're on, it's almost like they don't need the narrator because you're telling the story. And if you notice, it's like Jericho talks less and less on those episodes.
Well, I noticed his voice is shot from blowing his own horn is the problem. So, you know, he needs a rest every now and then. But I was the resident historian on this piece, and I enjoyed doing it because it's, you know, it's a fascinating, again, we had no idea what it was going to preface in 1984, you know, for the next 40 years, but it's a fascinating pivotal point in time in wrestling. And we got that's more people saw that 10-second clip of me on Georgia TV with Freddie Miller in 1983 on the airing of this Dark Side of the Ring episode than saw actually the entire television program we did all summer in like 8 different markets all combined, I think. So it's nice to see the summer of 83 getting some love from my extensive rookie year experiences. But, you know, we can talk about it a little bit because I thought it was a good episode. Again, the only problem is it needed to be longer. And you've got the constraints of, Barnett's story alone is it's a major motion picture, baby, if not a sitcom. And there were so many details and so much minutia in the way that everybody interacted that it's hard to tell that story. But again, you know, they were able to get some of the people that were involved. I thought Bryant Rogowski was fantastic. Even he's another guy younger than me. He's lost all his hair. I remember when he worked for me in Smoky Mountain, he was a young man with a full head of hair, but he tells a great story. He sounds just like Ole and cadence and the way he speaks. And it was good to see Bobby Simmons again after all these years. Nick Patrick. Tommy, you know, nobody would ever realize Tommy Rich is a Southern boy, would they?
I don't know, unless they look at his driving record, maybe.
No, come on now. I'm talking about his accent, baby.
Hey, I'm sleeping under the ring.
He's lived in America for 40 years and he still has the accent. But anyway.
You know, all these years later, it still sounds crazy when he goes, I'm Tommy Rich, former NWA world champion.
Yeah. But we love Wildfire. And that's what endeared him to the fans. Tommy Rich in his day in Georgia was as big as Snuka was in New York, or as big as any babyface was in any market pretty much in the last 50 years. It was amazing. But and that led to the the jealousy over, you know, him getting the belt for 5 days or whatever. Did you notice that Uncle Dave Meltzer's face is turning into a rutabaga? Has he become a vegetarian and it's taken over?
You know, I didn't notice. I guess the jet black hair was what I was paying attention to.
It wasn't jet black. It was an auburn color but the rest of the face is straight rutabaga. And Gerald
right.
Briscoe, is great as always. So, there's a lot of people that were involved in this, and I enjoyed being kind of, again, the person who was standing above the fray, because I was nobody at the time, and able to present the historical perspective from all sides. But again, the Barnett story, and when they shot here at the castle, Evan and his guys, his crew for Dark Side, especially for this episode, we went into a lot more detail on who Barnett was previously, how important he had been in the business. But that's an entirely different story. It would have taken another, episode to explain Barnett before we prepped for Black Saturday, which was primarily Vince's move. But the undercurrent of it was Barnett's revenge, the last, major move of the old master who had been, the guy for 30 years. So I think that was the biggest shortcoming, don't you think, of the episode? Or not necessarily shortcoming, but just, you couldn't tell all these stories of all these fucking people.
The problem is they tried to tell too much, and storytelling may not be their strong thing. It's more just getting the clips and the interviews up there. And I thought actually the biggest miss of the episode was too much focus at the end. Maybe it was just a few minutes, but that could have been used for fleshing out the story, talking about Vince McMahon now. Because even that stuff was outdated by the time the show came out.
Yeah. Well, it's because they keep finding more shit. I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to tell all these stories, but yeah, I know.
It was just a sudden jump from like 84, 2023. What?
Yeah.
I thought it was unnecessary because there was so much more to the story. There was more to be fleshed out. There was more they probably could have shown from any of the interviews they did with any of those guys. But instead it went to modern Vince, and it didn't tie together with the story as well as you would think on paper, I guess.
Well, and that's, I guess, the opposite end of the spectrum from the Barnett situation, whereas you needed a prologue for Barnett to understand why this guy was so powerful and had been so for so long and known everybody. You need to go back 30 years and to really, give any kind of update on Vince. It was abrupt to jump 40 years ahead. You need to, maybe season 6 needs to be Vince McMahon roots. Just the mini series. Here's Vince for fucking 50 years. Figure this out. I don't know. But anyway, did you notice again the clips, when you see the TBS clips of the Georgia wrestling promotion versus the WWF stuff going on concurrently? It's the same thing as the remark I make when we go back to the Attitude Era versus today. The clips, the footage looks so much more violent. It looks so much more, I don't even want to say real, because that word's almost been maligned these days. But you know what I'm saying? It's WWF early 80s was kick and punch, and Southern wrestling was wild, and the shit looked pretty good. And now it's the same thing, where the Attitude Era, shit was wild and it looked pretty good, compared to now it's not kick and punch. It's just miss and fucking pass. They're not even connecting.
Those kicks and punches may have looked like shit, but the guys sold them.
Yeah. And sometimes they look like shit and hurt too. You got that going for you every once in a while. But that's, just when we go back and look at this stuff, that's why that people were offended when Georgia Championship Wrestling was taken away and the WWF, show was put on, because at the time, not only the in-ring, but just the personalities, it wasn't a comparable product if you aired the same thing both things in the same market. And Vince had an exclusive, hold on the Northeast until that cable show came up. And then people were saying, holy shit, look at this stuff. So anyway, we've told this story, multiple times on the podcast, and just talking about it when we've done the historical pieces, Ole breaking into the office to, get into the records when Barnett was using it as his piggy bank. And for Barnett had gotten used to doing that, whatever he had run for the previous 25 years. And they always made money. Nobody ever looked at him because everybody was making money. But then all of a sudden, through multiple reasons that we've discussed in our, various retrospectives, everything from the Atlanta City Auditorium closing and they couldn't run the Omni once a week to, Ole's booking. Yeah, the guy's going to Japan all the time, disrupting programs, a variety of things. Georgia was not doing well. And that's when the stockholders said, wait a minute, now we're not making any money. They probably should have been making more money all along. But Barnett had to keep up that appearance that that was part of his gimmick. He was the Ric Flair of promoters. It had to be a show with the suits and the driver and the attending the arts events and the inauguration. He had to keep up, that appearance that he was a major fucking deal, not only in wrestling, but everywhere, because that was part of the reason why he was a major fucking deal in wrestling. Right?
I mean, he didn't have to spend all the money on himself.
Oh, well, I'm not saying he had to, but that's what he felt like. That's what he had to do to keep his gimmick up. He's like Flair.
I mean, I think he just felt it was his piggy bank and his investors were his investors, but they were under him.
But he knew that he was always finding investors, and he had Jim Oates was his longtime investor and friend he could go to for money, but he had to make those people think that everybody always thought Barnett was loaded.
But there were always people.
He was loaded from time to time with other people's money.
Remember, Ole Anderson in his book said that it was Vern, who he was always close with, who said, are people still buying that Barnett's a millionaire stuff? Because he knew Barnett from the beginning in Chicago. He knew him from the very beginning.
When Vern was the highest paid wrestler in the business, Barnett was still doing publicity.
Yeah, and Bobby Simmons once said something to me on the 605 Super Podcast years ago. Yeah, Barnett took money out, but he also put a lot of money in. So, again, I don't know exactly what that means or how to take it. If that means his investors' money or just whatever, but we're hearing about the money that came out.
He always found the money.
Right.
That's the thing. For all those years, if a company was struggling, if Barnett was involved, he found money to put it till it got over again. And if a company was struggling and they could bring Barnett in, he could fucking help it. He always had access to shit like that. So that was the thing, and that was, to be fair to Barnett, he said they never fucking said anything when I put all this money into these companies. Just when I took some out. But and only telling Barnett, well, Jim, you can resign if we can do this, or I'll throw you over your railing. And that was an Ole thing. Jerry Briscoe got hot. He's bullying an old man. Well, we don't know whether he really would have thrown. He might have dangled him for a while. I don't know if he'd have really thrown him. Have you noticed that Bob Roop somehow has figured out a way to still be alive at 147?
Somehow Bob Roop looks like Ole now.
I know, he's turned into Ole, hasn't he? But only if Ole was 147 years old.
I'm surprised Bob Roop didn't take the promoter side in this.
Well, I think he knows. I think he knows which side his historical bread is buttered on now.
Because at one point he said, again, there's elements of it is true, but the actual numbers are just out of thin air. He's like, whatever, thousands of people have lost their jobs because of Vince McMahon, and whoever the interviewer was. Well, what about those that have made millions? He's like, well, that's only like 3%.
Yeah.
That was quick math.
That was his quick mental calculation of every wrestler that's ever worked for Vince and otherwise. But anyways, good to see that Bob's still around. The story of the blood oath. How do you think that normal people who might stumble across this programming about wrestling take some of the, like Chris Colt with the acid-induced spiders in the cage, or these fucking grown men sitting around fucking gigging themselves in the head with a razor blade to take a blood oath that they'll only sell their company to the other. Or do you think it makes us look a bit odd?
I mean, it definitely looks crazy, especially when Jerry Briscoe's like, yeah, we thought it was crazy, so it only took a little while to convince us to do it.
Well, you know what? Yeah, it only took 10 minutes because we thought it was crazy at first, so it took you about 10 minutes. But you know why Ole was drunk? And the Briscoes are Indians. And he's seen the fucking TV shows. And the $6, they take the blood. They won't break their word because they're Indians. If I get them to take a blood oath, I've got them. He thought it was a real gimmick, not a fucking gimmick.
And then Jerry said Ole broke the oath.
Well, yes, he did, because he said he quit paying him what he'd promised to pay him, so he broke the oath first. But see, he's not an Indian, so he didn't think that anything bad would happen.
Native American, they call them now.
A Native American. Well, they didn't call him that then when this happened, so I'm trying not to confuse people. And besides that, I'm pretty sure that Ole thinking that the Indians would uphold the blood oath because he saw it on TV on Gunsmoke probably was specious fucking research to begin with, too.
How many times have you seen a drunk Ole Anderson?
I would never, because by the time I was around him in the mid 80s when he was working for Crockett, he wasn't running the company. He wasn't booking it even at that point. Remember when I worked for him, I only saw him like twice. Once when he shut the territory down. So, this, I would actually, it would probably be entertaining, except if he was mad at you, but I've never seen that side of Ole. And of course, he was never involved in any mind-altering substances. That was not an Ole Anderson thing.
That was a Gene Anderson thing.
Well, oh, come on now. For heaven's sake, Gene wasn't out there traveling with fucking Joplin and Hendrix and everything. But anyway, I loved it when Louise from The Office, who I'm glad to see is still around, they asked her, said, did Ole really hire a hitman to go after Vince? And she said, no, he would have done it himself. I think he might have thrown Vince off a balcony.
Yeah, someone should have talked to her about that mask.
Well, I don't know when this was shot, but she's an elderly lady, and she,
There's a way to use it, there's a way not to use it. You can't go halfway.
It was drooping at the end, but she may have had an immunity situation. We don't know. We're not sure about that, but anyway, what I enjoyed, I think, the most out of this episode, because obviously, since I voiced over narrated much of it, it wasn't a new story to me, besides the comments that these people involved made. But I think the best part was at the end when Bryant had a lot of Ole's old papers and things, and he read, and you saw a freeze frame for people who want to go back and read the whole thing.
Yeah, I paused it.
Yeah. But a letter to Ole from Bill Watts after Vince had taken the time slot and during that period of time. And the quote was, Vince McMahon will be the destruction of the industry as we know it. And once again, Watts predicts the fucking future.
It's interesting reading that letter too, though, because it was kind of an apology. And if you look at the time, it's April 87. That's WrestleMania 3. That's Watts selling to Crockett.
Yeah.
He writes this letter to Ole. I don't know what the state of his marriage was because it talks about family stuff in there too. And it was an apology. It was, sometimes we say things that it's hard to walk back. So him and Ole must have had a real big blow up because also Mid-South got on TBS in the middle of all this and got the highest ratings of any show on cable. And Watts was going to do the deal with Ted Turner when Vince sold to Crockett.
So, that it was a fascinating, period of time. And as I mentioned on the show, Vince's first, big major attempt at monopolizing at least the American airwaves with television wrestling of any kind of size was a failure because his product didn't get over with the TBS wrestling audience and created such a stir that all those other things you just mentioned were going to happen. Turner was going to get rid of him. So he ends up selling the time to Crockett so that Turner will be happy. The NWA's back on TBS, and he got the $1 million that he used, as we've mentioned many times, in part along with the booking fee from Inoki,
which was $1 million,
which was $1 million, to finance WrestleMania that led to him getting the last laugh to begin with. Well, I don't know if that makes sense. The last laugh to begin with. The last laugh in the end.
So what exactly does that mean if you break it down? Financing WrestleMania. We've all heard that story. Is that money for celebrity talent? Is that money just to lock up the closed circuit locations? Is it publicity and marketing? We all hear that. We've heard it about the New Japan contract. We've heard it about the Crockett thing. Apparently, when he signed the deal, didn't he say to Crockett, you're going to choke on that $1 million?
Yeah, which actually was reverse fucking logic because he got the $1 million. You see what I'm saying? But the intent was there. But I think it was, I don't know, he may have had to give Liberace a goddamn deposit to show up. I don't know. He wouldn't have.
Liberace was in New York. He was doing, I want to say Radio City maybe. He was in New York doing shows.
Yeah, well, but I'm saying the celebrities, I don't know how that was handled, and probably on a case-by-case basis. Some might have gotten money up front, some not, whatever the case. None of the wrestlers would have needed money up front for WrestleMania. Where the expenses came, remember, he's still running the territory. And he's making, obviously, a profit, because the Northeast Wrestling Promotion always made a fucking profit. But all of a sudden, he booked, remember, even though they canceled, a few dozen of the closed circuit locations as it got closer, that everything didn't just do great. But he had what was it, 180 or 200 locations booked? You had to put some kind of deposit down on every single one of those buildings to hold the date after a certain. I mean, you might be able to say, put a hold on it for me if it's 6 months out. And then somebody else might say, well, put a second hold on it for me, because if that guy doesn't pay his deposit by 90 days out, I'll take it. So depending on the facility, from a couple months to several months out, you got to have a monetary deposit in. If he had 200 locations, and the deposit was $1,000. That's $200,000, right? So that was, that's why they kept saying if it had flopped, because then he would have had to pay when he showed up that night the rent on everything. That's why the late cancellations happen. Because when it's just going to die, you say, fuck it. Let's not do it at all. We won't have to pay the full rent or whatever. We can get out of this some way, mitigate the damage. But, for that many locations, if it had bombed, just paying the rent alone would have been 7 figures, would it not?
Yeah, I guess so.
So, boom goes the Dynamite.
Well, that was Black Saturday. Again, the end of it dealt with Vince's problems in 2023. The last things on the screen were that Vince left WWE at the beginning of 2024 and the passing of Ole Anderson.
And at least for once and all, the fuck you and fuck Linda story has been commemorated on television and on video until the end of time.
They should, you know what? They sometimes use audio. Some of the guys they don't have from old shoot interviews. They should have used the audio of Ole telling that story.
Yeah.
Because he spits it out the way it was meant to be heard. Fuck you and fuck her.
Fuck you and fuck her.
Well, that's Dark Side of the Ring. I guess the next thing, we'll have to figure out if we're going to watch. The guys from Dark Side have teamed up with $7, The Rock, and executive producer Danny Garcia, because that name means a lot on the marquee.
And is Hiram involved?
I don't know. He may be busy. I mean, he's a busy guy, Hiram, and Gewurz, has to handle all those bottles of piss. So I don't know what he's going to be able to do, but is it the death of WCW? Or who killed WCW?
Who killed WCW? It was a gangland slaughter. It was like Murder on the Orient Express. Everybody came in and fucking plunged a knife into it.
The last thing we needed was another documentary about WCW and everyone telling the same stories, and in a lot of cases, they're stories. We should have had, what they should have done is the trial, a mock trial with a real judge and real lawyers. Who killed WCW? I would tune in for that. I think someone needs to really dive in on wrestling trials.
And the prosecutor could be Cock Robin.
That's right. Cock Robin.
But no, who killed WCW? I like the concept, and I want to see from the people that they've shown on the trailer, I want to see which one blames the other ones, because they're all going to be blaming each other. You know, and they're all responsible, but they're all going to be blaming each other, and I think this could be entertaining.
Well, we shall see, but that was the Dark Side of the Ring, Black Saturday. Jim, your audio has been a nightmare today. I'm really pissed off about it. I'm embarrassed for the listeners, or for myself in front of the listeners. I wish our friends at Mint Mobile supplied internet to people like you the way they supply wonderful mobile phone service.
To people like me, people that don't deserve the good things in life, Brian, is that what you're saying? You ought to be embarrassed about our friends at Mint Mobile because you misspoke the other day. Because everybody knows that Mint Mobile, the place that has the best phone plans now, as a matter of fact, they're not just phone plans, they're plots. They got this all figured out.
No, it's not a plot. I wouldn't call it a plot. It's a plan for you.
They have set back and they have plotted this out. They've got it. It's perfection from woe to go, or go to woe, however you start and stop. But you misspoke the other day. The fine young man, an entrepreneur and connoisseur that started this company, Mint Mobile, is that Ryan Reynolds. He's a movie star. He's a TV star. He's an acting star. He's an all-about, gadabout, a man about town. And you said that he was the star of Deadspin. And he's not the star. He's the star of Dead or Alive.
No, that's not it.
No, remember Dead or Alive? Remember, you spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round. I want your love. See, remember that record? That's Dead or Alive. Ryan Reynolds is that guy that did that, and now he's got this phone company.
That's not him. No, and it wasn't Deadspin. It was Deadpool, which I knew, and I somehow misspoke a few times. You didn't catch it because you thought it was Dead or Alive.
Well, no, wait a minute. Is that Deadspin? He's one of the Deadspin or Deadpool?
Deadpool.
He's one of the new comic book. They didn't have him when I was a kid. And he's one of the new guys. What are his powers? Is he dead or alive?
He's just ugly, and he wears a mask.
Well, but why do they call him Deadpool then? If he's still alive, but he's just ugly.
He used to like to swim.
Okay, I'm not connected. Is this one of the ancillary characters these days?
He's a pretty big character.
Deadpool?
And he's connected to the X-Men.
Swim and he's ugly?
Wolverine's going to be in the movie. We're not supposed to be plugging the movie. We're talking about Mint Mobile, but...
No, well, it's this guy. He quit singing, and he became an actor, and he somehow, I thought he was dead.
No, it's not the guy. Have you ever seen whatever happened to that guy, Peter Burns from Dead or Alive? You ever see what he looks like?
Who's Peter Burns?
The lead singer of Dead or Alive.
I thought that was Ryan Reynolds.
Why would you think that?
Well, because you said he was.
I never said that.
Well, what happened to the other guy?
You said he was. Your mind went to that awful song.
You said that,
and then you started singing it.
You said that you just said, have you ever you just said that the other guy was ugly. That was one of his superpowers. You said if you seen a picture of him, he looks terrible.
Are you talking about the guy from Dead or Alive or Deadpool?
I thought it was the same one because they're both ugly.
Listen, let's talk about, if this rumor is going around, you have to get on the phone. You have to try to snuff it out.
Well, no, you got to get on a telephone and call somebody and say, I want your love, because of Ryan Reynolds being the guy that sang that song, and now he's dead, so we got to honor him.
No, Ryan Reynolds is not dead, for the record. He's alive. He's very much alive.
Okay, well, and he's still singing.
He's not a singer.
He's got this phone company called Mint Mobile. And they've got phone plans for $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. And I know you're going to say, well, how in the world do they do that? He doesn't need much because he's dead. And he doesn't really need much to sustain him anymore. He's an international actor and business person now.
Well, it's a business. It's not like all the money's going right into his pocket. He owns the business of...
Well, I'll tell you what, if the money isn't going into his pocket, he may have to throw somebody over the daggum railing.
was going to say, you think he's Jim Barnett? What's going on over here?
Well, he might be Ole Anderson breaking in to find out, hey, who's keeping my money away from me? But say bye-bye to the people keeping your money away from you, folks, with your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. You're not going to get any overages on Mint Mobile like that are unexpected. You're going to, well, they're not going to let you go over at all. If you try, they'll slap you right down.
Metaphorically, actually, no, there's no slapping down of anyone.
Well, they'll at least give you a slap on the wrist, won't they? If not just a jaw rattler, just a slap on the wrist to remind you not to do that again.
Well, I mean, they are serious. Again,
possibly.
The Rock ran away from Ryan Reynolds when he got him mad.
Well, there you go, because he's a badass. Because once you've been dead, there ain't nothing that a motherfucker can do to you. But these premium wireless plans from Mint Mobile start at $15 a month. I mentioned that because they come with high-speed data, unlimited talk, and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network, if only they did the internet. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. Bring your phone number. Bring your whole family's phone numbers. Let's have a fucking party and start calling people. Just call people at random. They'll enjoy hearing from you. But you can ditch the overpriced wireless with this limited time deal. 3 months, premium wireless service, $15 a month. You say, Jim, how can you make yourself a member of this fine plan or this phone plot, as they say? Well, all you got to do if you're a new customer, because it's a new customer offer only. If you're older, I think, what is the cutoff age, Brian? About 50, 52?
No, it's not age restricted. It's about a new customer in terms of someone newly doing business with Mint Mobile.
Oh, so you can be old and still be a new customer. Yeah, it's going to be $15 a month. You go to mintmobile.com/JCE. That's mintmobile.com/JCE, spelled just like Mobile, Alabama. And you cut your wireless bill to $15 a month, and this is how it happens. It's a $45 upfront payment required. That's equivalent to $15 a month. New customers, as we mentioned, on the first 3-month plan only, no matter how old you are. Speeds slower above 40 GB on the unlimited plan, whatever the fuck that means. And additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. You can see Mint Mobile for details or just call Ryan Reynolds up. His number's 555-474-2549, and he'll be glad to answer all your questions. Wake him up. He's on West Coast time. He needs to get up out of bed.
He won't be there, but Mint Mobile is and will be. Once again, what's that promo code, Jim?
Mintmobile.com/JCE, and I believe we've gone over all the details. And regardless of Ryan Reynolds' current status, you can this offer will stand for a limited time only.
Well, Jim, speaking of for a limited time only, I only had a limited amount of time this week. A lot of work, a lot of editing, a lot of things happening behind the scenes. I did not watch WWE Raw. I feel like that's a good thing, but I understand you saw it and you have some thoughts.
Yeah, and my first thought is, fuck you. Because I had to suffer and you didn't. I know just because you had those various professional commitments that you had to make, you were not able to catch up on Raw, but I have notes here on it somewhere. I don't remember. Here it is. And boy, do they put some type of tranquilizer, some type of lithium or Xanax or something in the Hartford, Connecticut water these days? Or is it just they came back from France back to regular human beings?
Yeah, maybe that.
This was, well, you didn't see it, but this was...
No, I started it. I gave it a shot for the first few minutes, and I was like, you know what?
That's even worse.
Yeah, I was like, there's nothing holding me here right now with this. There's no big thing. I like the Drew and CM Punk stuff, but beyond that, there's nothing happening on Raw to pull me in right now.
Well, the thing is, they went from the French crowd that was just completely over the top batshit, holy crap, we love everything, to the folks in Hartford, even for a WWF domestic crowd in the States, were kind of like, It was one of those days. It didn't seem, or one of those nights, one of those crazy nights where it didn't seem to gel for everybody. They even tried to do the Jey Uso thing. That's one of the only things that the audience really tried to participate in, and it still didn't come off the same because it was like every fourth person going, "Yeah, I got a phone. Here you go. Okay, my arm's tired." Well, I mean, that does
You never think about that part of it. Yeah.
does require some level of commitment physically from the audience, right? With that fucking deal. And what if people have a bad rotator cuff, AC joint? We could be seeing the start of some lawsuits, people throwing their shit out of fucking connection.
You mean to tell me there have been no incidents where someone gets overzealous, just starts smacking the person in front of them in the head or the person behind them at the same time?
Yeah, you got that phone in your hand. If you bring it up, you either smack the guy in the front of you in the back of the head or you fucking cave the face in of the person behind you. Yes, Your Honor. I was standing there watching the show when suddenly this guy threw his right arm over his fucking head and hit me in the face with his phone.
It would be the opposite of what they show. Now they show with the lights go out and all the phones come up. Now it would be the lights are out, the phones start going off. They turn the lights back on. Everyone's on the floor.
Everybody's bleeding. Oh, the humanity. Fucking, we need the fucking medic stat. All right, so it could get dangerous out there. It's like the mosh pit. When I saw that shit, when that became a thing, I was like, what the fuck is the matter with these people? You get hurt out there like that. They don't care if they're injured because they want to express their antisocial tendencies. Yeah, well, goddamn, and go kick somebody in the balls, get it over with. Anyway, so there's trouble in I'm just going to go through a few things in generics. There's trouble in the Judgment Day. You can tell because there's been all this conflict and these things going sideways. But now suddenly Damian Priest, they do the opening interview. Dominic's in a sling, by the way, and there's Priest, there's Finn, there's JD, and there's Dominic in a sling. It's almost like Priest is the fucking high school football fullback that got left back 2 or 3 years with the sophomore smartasses that are a foot shorter than he is.
All right, listen here, sweat hogs. Here's what we're going to do.
It doesn't. I don't know that if they want Priest to be a singles world champion, that he needs the, Mo, Larry, and Curly in the group at this point. But nevertheless, they start to apologize to him for not, doing whatever the fuck in France. And he, no, because it was my fault. Remember when he shoved them after they interfered and tried to attack the, Jay when he was done with him? But Priest now is apologizing. I lost my cool. I appreciate JD. Finn's my brother. They had a big three-way hug, and then Dominic came up from behind and grabbed all of them. So we thought Priest was going to break off and become a babyface because he's refusing the help and he's cranky with the group. And now he was remorseful and, he's the one apologizing. So that mean he's staying a heel or he's just a fucking pussy? I don't know.
In a lot of ways, WWE has really not adopted, but gone with some of the stuff that they were saying, or that Cody was saying in the early days of AEW. No baby faces and no heels. I mean, clearly there are, but with something like Judgment Day, sometimes it depends on a segment by segment basis. And even though they're heels, they're presented, especially in the backstage segments, any of these segments where they're either arguing or just discussing things passionately. They're concerned for each other. They embrace each other, show support for one another. They're heels, but they're presented in a sympathetic babyface light way too often.
They care about each other. They support each other.
Hey, listen, other than Priest, whose voice, Dominic, his voice is up there. Every one of them, Finn, Dominic, Rhea, we've heard them do their, I'm Rhea bloody Ripley. And then she goes in the back, guys, I'm really concerned about lunch, whatever the fuck their problem is. Every one of them, we've heard their voices come down and we've heard the concerned voice. And again, it's puzzling. They're heels, but they're shown in that light, and I don't get it.
Maybe he ought to send Finn and JD out to fucking open a halfway house for girls who won't go all the way and give them the support.
I've become a fan of JD. The more I watch him, I appreciate every single thing he does. He does a lot of the little things well.
See, that's Finn and JD as a tag team. I could kind of be interested. Finn's a tremendous worker, and JD's got personality. He's working his ass off. He's trying hard.
And they're similar size. They would look good together.
Yeah, because the one wouldn't be fucking a foot and a half taller than the other one. But the group, it looked odd. But anyway, that's the thing. And now Drew is out. His elbow is injured, or some part of his arm is injured. Some of the mechanics in the arm there. And so he's out. So Finn has to fight Jey Uso instead of advancing in the King of the Ring tournament, blah, blah, blah. And so they led into that match. And Jey, again, the hot dogging. It's reached a new where he's throwing those lousy fucking punches with that the awkward split leg double stomp where the guy has to fucking stand. I know you always have to stand there and take the punches, but boom, boom, boom. And then he backs up, does a break dance, a little fucking Egyptian snake dance, and then throws a fucking open hand and makes a big slapping noise and whatever the fuck. It's too much. His work does not bear that out, does it? God damn it. I'm not talking about this specific instance. I'm talking about what we're seeing regularly.
I'm sick of Jey Uso, the wrestler, personally. I really liked him in the Bloodline stuff where he got to do promos and show emotion. I don't like his matches, and the yeet thing is certainly something that the WWE fans really seem to like. But it's one of those things I'm just not into anything about what's happening right now with Jey Uso. I don't like it at all.
If mark my words, if he doesn't tighten up his work, and if he doesn't cut down somewhat on the hot dogging and self-aggrandizement and telling the people to cheer for it, it's going to be a backlash of it. And there was, as a matter of fact, I remember one point, and I'll move on to the finish of this thing, but there was one point where, again, he's up on the ropes, and he does the punches, boom, and then he draws back. He's doing the big wind up, blah, 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 and the fucking heel fucking trips him and foils it. There is nothing worse that you can do to a babyface than when you foil his hot doggery. Because then that makes him look like a fucking idiot. And instead of even his fans saying, oh, like, oh, goddamn, he shouldn't have done that to Jey, is like, oh, Jey should have fucking known better. He shouldn't have been hot dogging. That's one of the first things you used to learn from the veterans was don't let if you're a baby face, yes, you can be stopped, preferably from behind or illegally, but even stopped, but not while you're hot dogging instead of giving it your best effort. Who was it in the mixed martial arts match? I don't remember whether it was UFC or whatever, that goddamn, was it John Jones at one time that one of the more well thought of fighters was like pointing at his chin and taunting the guy. This was years ago, and then the guy popped off and knocked him the fuck out. It can happen. Don't fucking hot dog and have it backfire on you. Anyway, after this match, or at the end of this match, Drew came through the people over the rail and to ringside, and while Jey was distracted, Finn schoolboyed him for a 2 count, and then when Jey kicked out, Finn fucking charged at him, and Jey just hit him with a spear. Boom, 1, 2, 3, and that was it. And then Drew, calmly and slowly, with a mean look on his face, gets in the ring, and Jey rolls out and walked off. So I'm not sure of the psychology of that, in that Drew's getting in the ring. He's not jumping in to attack, but at the same time, he's getting in with a mean face. And Jey, instead of standing his ground and like, well, what the fuck, and whatever, he just dropped and stopped, drop, and roll like he was on fire and backed up the entranceway, keeping his eye on Drew. Like, I don't want any more of this. Or I don't want any of that. And that was that. But then, in the back, Drew was upset with Adam Pearce because Punk has screwed him. And he said he wanted to tape his arm up and get in the King of the Ring, but Pearce did a really good promo telling him no, he wasn't going to do that. He was going to respect the doctors, blah, blah, blah. And Drew gets in a fancy sports car that's sitting there and drives off. And within 7 seconds, a Z28 pulls up. And it's Punk. And he gets out and tosses the keys to Pearce like he's the valet parking guy. Says, sorry, I'm late. Where's Drew McIntyre? Oh, geez, you just missed him. And Punk's like, seriously? And he started to go that way. And Pearce, no. I know that I'm sure that Punk probably is trying to be a good soldier. And when creative in this company that is somewhat more professionally run on a variety of levels gives him something, he's trying to make the best out of it. But goddamn, that was just way too fucking convenient that he should pull up in a sports car to the exact same location that Drew McIntyre just pulled out of in a sports car 7 seconds beforehand. Don't you think?
Well, I mean, that's just the way things are done. It's part of the overall story, I would think. That way you kind of avoid the confrontation, but you still get a lot out of people waiting for the confrontation.
Well, I know that they were doing that. They can't fight every week or people be sick of seeing them fight. But it was just so convenient. But that shows me that Punk is trying to, because I'm sure Punk knew it was convenient too. But he's trying to be a good soldier there. He's taking what he's given and he's trying to make it work. But then it got better from there because he said, well, in that case, tell the truck to play my music. And he walked through the hallway past Gorilla, through the curtain, and suddenly into the arena like Mussolini in a Z28. He came in, but he was late.
You're modulating nonstop, and now you don't.
Hey, I've got model modulation going on. It's perfect. If you construct a model of modulation, that's the modulation that I've got now. I'm modeling it after your model modulation.
I don't have modulation.
Well, that's how I took it all away from you. Anyway, I need to catch up on how he got trapped in the WWE headquarters. I had a hectic weekend, and I know there was something on social media. Did he actually legitimately get stuck, locked in, kept against his better judgment or own will in the new headquarters up there, or was this some type of storyline programming?
I have no idea because I didn't look too deep into it, but I saw the things that you must have seen, and I'm thinking my first thought is, because it's ridiculous, the idea of CM Punk being locked in headquarters, oh, this is some wacky social media bit. But then other people were saying it's true. He changed Bruce Pritchard's nameplate to say Jim Herd. I saw that. But I don't know.
You know, at the old place, yeah, they had a roof garden. And if you were an employee and had the key cards that would get you in the door, you could go up on the weekends, nobody was there, and have you a nice little fucking picnic on the roof garden or whatever. Maybe he got stuck up there. They got a bigger building now. Maybe they got a bigger garden. Anyway, I think the promo that he did was fine and the concept was fine, and almost nothing worked in front of these people. It wasn't just this segment. It was most of the night. The crowd was just not really, because he did the deal. I'm going to hijack the show and hold it hostage. I'm not getting out of the ring because I came here to pick a fight with Drew McIntyre, and I heard he just left, but he's got to be at a stoplight. Got to be out on the corner. He can't be but a few blocks away. Everybody take a picture and tweet it to Drew McIntyre. If he's not a coward, he'll come back. Can you imagine if they had asked the audience in France to do that? My God, you'd have gone blind from the flashes going off, whatever the fuck. Do they still flash with the phone cameras?
Sometimes there is use for a flash.
Well, nevertheless, they didn't react loudly. He told the story about his tricep tear. He tied it into the fucking, situation with Drew whining and bitching. He said, I'm a 5-tool player and Drew's just a tool, from the crowd. He was trying to milk it like he really was waiting for Drew. And then finally he goes home with it. You prayed for me to be injured. You prayed for this and I broke your elbow. If you don't show up now, the next time I see you, I'm going to break your face and I'm going to break your heart. I don't know if you're a God-fearing man, but one thing you fear is CM Punk. Drew never came back. They played Punk's music and he left. Again, with any other crowd in any other building that we've seen on any other television program, this would have worked a little better. But also, I mentioned the coincidence of him just pulling up when Drew, had pulled out and then going out to say, well, he's still close. He's still got time. Because the people have the picture in their head of Austin coming back in the ambulance or this guy or that guy or the other fucking guy. You thought Drew was coming back. When he didn't come back, there wasn't really an ending for this bit. So it's yeah. See what I mean?
Thank God I didn't see it, but yeah, I see what you mean.
All right. I also, a couple of other things. I watched the wrestling debut, at least on Raw, of Ilya Dragunov. And guess who they had him work with?
The guy from Imperium?
No, they did not. They had him work with that Rick O'Shea fella.
Ricochet.
And here's the thing that I've realized, is that it takes two to tango. We love Ilya. He's got a different style. He sells, is incredible. He's got the facials. He's small, but it works for him. And also he has the bangers. He has the stiff matches. Gunther and he were two of the, 5 or 6 best matches that we've seen in the past 5 years. And he's a very unique kind of guy, but it doesn't, what is special about him doesn't work when the illusion of the underdog, and now he's a heel, by the way. I don't know how they work that when this guy takes a classic ass whipping as a babyface. But it doesn't work when it's not a contest, because they started out trying to do Ricochet shit. And this wasn't a good showing for Ilya because he doesn't need to be doing the fucking gymnastics routines. It pops his balloon. It destroys his aura. I'll give you can buy that this guy is either trying the best he can to kick the shit out of somebody, or he's getting the shit kicked out of him, or he's mentally into the thing because of his facials and his emotion. The last thing you want in one of Ilya's matches, like in one of Gunther's matches, is for something to look ridiculously fake or choreographed, right? There was a point in this match where they had to fight on the top turnbuckle and slow it down because Ilya has to sit on the top and wait for Ricochet to get up next to him so they could stand up together carefully so he could get Hurricane Rana'd. And then it's just a small guy doing other shit that everybody else does. So with Ricochet, that style you would think because Ilya is small, put him with a small athletic guy. No. Even if he's a heel, put him with a regular working baby faces, but put him with regular workers, not fucking cheerleaders. That's not his thing. That's not what gets him over. He's not a flyer or a flipper or whatever. But luckily, he won with a superplex and the driving forearm thingy that he does. But you see what I mean about that? They've got a guy that looks like he's one of the lighter weight guys in the UFC. He's going to fight to the fucking end, and they're putting him in goddamn the floor exercise. It doesn't work. That's not his thing. It's not what makes him special.
Yeah, you could be a Ricochet fan and accept that this is a little bit of a style clash.
And we're not talking about the one that AJ gives out either. Just don't have these two people do this anymore. But here's, you would have thought there was a styles clash between Bronson Reed and Chad Gable. And of course, the whole thing didn't last 5 minutes with an angle and everything. But Chad Gable got a deadlift German suplex with a bridge on Bronson Reed.
Wow.
What I don't know. It didn't look real. It looked computer generated, but what a fucking athlete and what an amateur wrestler he is. And his leverage is impeccable. But anyway, they're doing a 3-way thing with Sami Zayn. So Sami Zayn hit the ring after Chad had hit some kind of wing ding off the top rope, and he tackled Gable and they called the DQ, and then he fought Bronson Reed, but Gable Germaned him from behind, but Sammy suplexed him, and then Bronson Reed rock bottomed both of them, and then they were out of there in 5 minutes. So, I don't know, but I like Chad Gable. If we can get more of him and less of his associates, and the model girl especially.
There's too much stuff with the Intercontinental and the U.S. title that devolves into a 3-way feud over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's happening here again. I'd like to see Chad Gable get a run with someone, not, you're going to do this, and now we'll throw Bronson Reed into the mix. No, just stick with one thing.
Lazy booking. And I wish you had seen Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan face off. Somebody on Twitter said, I've seen pizza delivery guys in pornos deliver lines with more emotion than Liv Morgan. And they got in a fight with Damage. Well, actually, they didn't get in a fight. They got in a fight with Damage Control because Damage Control came out, except when Becky and Liv were back-to-back going to fight off the 3 heels, then Liv rolled out and left Becky alone. The heels jumped her, and here came Lyra Valkyria. Or Valkyria, the new girl, who made a subpar comeback on the heels, and the fans sat there and ready. Again, boy, it was a tough crowd, I tell you. And then, even Gunther. I love to watch Gunther versus Sheamus. Maybe not quite so much, but because I've said it before, I don't know if I get Sheamus. His appearance is so off-putting to me. But it's 2 top guys, and they finally kind of got the people, but not like they would have in any other city in America, apparently. And then the finish was Gunther got a half crab and pulled him away from the ropes, and he fucking tapped out. The babyface that just returned from a long injury timeout, or time off, he was told to sit in the corner, gave a timeout. And he taps out in his first big TV match. What the fuck is going on? And not only was it a flat finish with a flat crowd, but my DVR froze 3 seconds later, so they almost went off the air. You didn't miss nothing. I'll tell you, boy, howdy.
Well, that was one of the best episodes of Raw I've seen in a while. WWE Raw.
And you know what? And there's still these people that go, well, he watches all of AEW. He goes into more detail about AEW. Here's the thing. With Raw and to some extent SmackDown these days, especially after the WrestleMania season, there's a lot of this shit. It's not stupid. It's not laughable. It's not unprofessional. It's not a clown show. It's just kind of fucking slow and boring. And there's not really anything to remark about either way, except, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this, but it took up time. But with the other shit, you've got to ask the question on a regular basis in every segment. What the fuck is going on? Can you believe they did this? What the fuck did this mean?
Yeah, I say I can't believe this multiple times every Dynamite.
It was... So anyway, that's what that is.
Well, that's what that is, and it was a close shave, but luckily I had other things to do and I didn't watch Raw. But other people may need a close shave, Jim, and we know someone who could help them with all their shaves, close or far.
How far away can you shave? How far away?
Well, if you have long arms, you can bring your arm in.
But your face is still close, Brian, unless you're shaving someone else. And then if they're more than arm's length away, they're going to have to shave themselves, or elsewise that could be a close shave because they may not survive. Just like this commercial
Just like this show today. Jesus.
Barely is surviving your transitions. However, our friends over at Harry's, you know, the last time I talked about our friends at Harry's that have all the shaving supplies and everything you need to have a fine quality slick shave in your own home, from your own hands and your own arms to your own face. All you need, they've got at Harry's. And you laughed at me, Brian. You made mockery at me because I was talking about basically the centerpiece of the whole Harrys.com shaving kit and apparatus is the ergonomically designed razor that has a weighted handle and is shaped in such a way it's ergonomic so that you can easily apply it to your face on either side, your left face or your right face, or your about face. And you laughed at me, and I'll have you know that now I was ahead of the curve here, and so were the people at Harry's, because now how many times have you seen the word ergonomic? Everything's ergonomic it's designed to fit the flow and the contour of your anatomy or your grip or your physiognomy or your colon or whatever you're putting this thing in. Ergonomics are everywhere. Thanks to Harry Ergo at Harrys.com. He started a trend, the ergonomics that built America. And Harry Ergo can help you out too, ladies and gentlemen. Get a close shave and smell better. We understand for some of you that's an issue. They've got the deodorants, the body washes, the hair gel. Also, some of you, again, very dry. Looks like when you're walking down the street, it's snowing, you're flaking out. They got the lotion to keep your skin together and on your body. It's an anti-leprosy type of formulation. And they've got, again, everything you're going to need, folks, at Harrys.com. And the best part about it, you can get started with a trial set of the razor with the 5-blade head on it. So you can cut those whiskers a number of ways, long, wide, deep, repeatedly, however, with 5 different blades, with the weighted handle, ergonomic, the foaming shave gel, and a travel cover so you don't slice an artery when you're reaching into your bag to get this bad boy. $3 is what they're charging you for a regular $13 trial set. Then you can sample these fine products and make your own estimation and judgment, or ask people around. Shave a couple of times with the Harry's trial set, $3 at harrys.com/JCE. Normally you'd pay $13 if you were a mark. And shave a couple of times with it, and then just ask people on the street. Just say, how does my face look to you? And you'll be surprised the answers that you get, folks. They're going to love it. They're going to say, well, your face looks like the ass of a newborn baby. It's so smooth. Can I just feel it? Can I just place the head of my penis on your cheek? Oh my God, it's amazingly smooth. Feels like baby oil. What did you grease yourself with this morning?
What are you talking about?
You're going to get attention the likes of which you've never gotten before when you use the fine products from Harrys.com on your face. And you can get that $13 trial set for only $3 at Harrys.com/JCE. And then, if you don't, it's a no-risk trial. If you don't like your shave, no worries. It's on them, and they've got a convenient subscription option. They'll send you stuff regular. You can cancel at any time. Why would you? You're just going to become a fucking wolf man? But nevertheless, certain people in the Himalayas tend not to ever shave during the course of their lifetime their body hair in any manner, shape, or form. The head, the face, the crotch, whatever. You can't tell one end of those sumbitches from another.
They say there are entire countries that look like Lon Chaney Jr.
Well, but actually, no, they look more like Larry Talbot. And not Punk's dog, the real one. Nevertheless, again, you get all this stuff.
What is happening?
What's happening here? Just get all the hair off your face with Harry's. How does that handle feel to you? A lot of people are going to be asking about that ergonomic handle, but the whole thing, the whole package of it, harrys.com/JCE, and then ask people about their impression of your face. You'll be amazed at what you hear.
And you'll be amazed at what you shave with what you shave. And that's Harry's. One more time, what's that promo code, Jim?
Baby, I'm amazed at the way you shave me all the time. And baby, I'm amazed at the way you pluck me.
Promo code I asked for, not disgracing the legacy of Paul McCartney.
Harrys.com, and the promo code is JCE. You're not gonna pay 13, just 3. Bum, 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 bum.
Well, Jim, speaking of shave, I'm gonna try to shave. I guess not shave time. Just talk about some other things before we get to Dynamite.
God damn it! You used to be such a learned, articulate individual. The podcast industry has broken you.
This is the day that has broken me. This recording today has broken me. But the good thing is I'm the
one that had to crawl on my hands and knees under the desk to unplug and replug the modem and the router, or the motor and the routem, or whichever the things are. You didn't have to do that.
Well, Jim, however good or bad your day or my day or the listener's day may be, there's a chance it may be better than the last few days for Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, famous for his feuds with Harley Race, the Von Erichs, Dusty Rhodes, and Piesanos. A story emerged the other day. I'm already smiling and laughing. A story emerged the other day because Ric Flair tweeted about it. Otherwise, no one would have known.
He divined himself.
Ric Flair announced that I think he had never been as disrespected before because he got into a fight with the manager about the bathroom. And I think he thought it would go the other way. That people would be like, yeah, you can't treat Ric Flair like that. Not that everyone's first reaction would be like, all right, what did Ric do? And we made some guesses. I mean, it was a story that he wooed in a blind grandmother's face.
Well, and that we haven't we haven't gotten confirmation of that. And as well, I was disappointed because there's video now that's surfaced, and from the manager's official statement, I thought we were going to see some furniture, some chairs being swung. There was talk of chairs being wielded in a menacing fashion. There was talk of threat. There wasn't any, at least in what we saw, there wasn't any chairs swinging. There wasn't any face wooing of blind people. But it wasn't even an animated tongue lashing, because I got to be honest, folks, it appeared to the average lay person viewing it that Rick was gassed. He was pickled. He wasn't really yelling or screaming. He was barely articulating. But it wasn't security footage that we saw. It was somebody on the other side of the bar with a camera just shooting it. And it was Rick telling off apparently the manager of the whole place. From what I heard, apparently now we can narrow it down that the kitchen manager is the one that was taking too long in the bathroom.
Right, but that is not the man that he's yelling at here.
He's yelling at the whole manager of the whole wing-dinging place there.
Right.
Or the whole pie-slinging place.
Pie, yeah, it's a pizza pie.
Well, the pizza places have wings, so they could be wing-dinging and pie-slinging. But the point is, poor Rick tweeted, as you said, he'd never been so disrespected this place. He took his whole family. He took pictures. He signed autographs. He spent $1,500, and they kicked him out of the place. Come to find out, they didn't kick him out. They just cut him off. And the reason why he spent $1,500 was because he gave the waitress $1,000 tip for apparently only to show the manager of the place, well, fuck you, she's getting $1,000 and I'm going to call you a dipshit. And now, because he brought attention to the incident, he's put out an apology that nobody would have known about this thing, that he wouldn't have had to apologize if he hadn't mentioned it in the first place.
And it explains a little better.
I feel there was a logic lapse in that thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And, this definitely explains a little bit of the economics behind the $1,500 spent at a pizza place. He still spent $500 apparently, and gave out $1,000 originally. And we'll play some audio.
But we also know they have a liquor license now. There's no question about that. So, yeah.
Well, that is another one of the big parts that comes out in the video. The manager, Rick, went right to in the tweet that everyone saw that he was kicked out. They just cut him off. They didn't kick him out. They just said, we can't serve you anymore. So that's a different story completely.
I think it almost appeared he was on propofol. I think Michael Jackson's doctor would have cut him off.
Well, let's see how this comes out. I'm not sure how it will work out on the show here, because like
this is not professionally shot footage, and the audio is somewhat sketchy. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this now. Fuck it. Everybody that's interested is going to find this on the internet. And I don't know is this a TikTok thing that you get closed captioning? It's captioned at the bottom, or is that something that the person had to do on their own, or is that automatic?
I think it probably was automated, if I had to guess.
Well, it sounds like it, or it looked like it, because, like I said, Rick was not enunciating exactly clearly. And at one point, he's telling his waiter, "You and I were good," and his waitress, "You and I were good." And then he points at the manager and he says, "And along comes dipshit." But the closed captioning said, "And along comes the Egyptian." and then people were commenting that he was making racist remarks. He's an anti-dipshitite. Yeah, but it was like trying to close caption Dusty's commentary on the Saturday night TBS show years ago. And here's dipshit over, and here's the Egyptian over here. What the fuck? They couldn't understand him.
With all the problems in the Middle East today, I did not think Ric Flair would speak out about the Egyptians, of all people.
And here come the Egyptians to fuck things up totally. Oh, God damn it. Oh, God, that was so fucking funny.
Well, let's see if we can play any of this. Again, you can see it. I watched it a few times because I watched it once reading the captions, and then I actually listened to what was said. Here's Ric Flair at Piesanos, Gainesville, Florida.
Oh, good. Well, I didn't do it wrong, except spend money and put this place over and bring my family and friends here. That is bad for you.
Why would it be bad for me?
Well, watch social media tomorrow.
I don't follow social media.
Well, you better.
I don't get stuck on my phone.
What's your name, nut job? Nicholas what?
Hold on.
Nicholas Dickhead.
You don't have.
Let me stop it for a second here. Well, Nicholas Dickhead, a.k.a. the Egyptian, is having a conversation with Ric Flair right now. Ric Flair is dressed like some magical creature that was drawn on the wall of the pyramids.
No, he's in his bright blue paisley. The gimmick that he's been wearing, he's at Piesanos. He's standing out at Piesanos in Gainesville, Florida, a very staid Republican area of the country. But that was when he said, watch the media tomorrow. He was meaning, I'm going to tweet and bury you. And he was expecting that everybody was going to.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Rick doesn't do his own tweets. And what was tweeted out also went out on Facebook. So it went out a few different places. Whoever manages his social media got a phone call, or God forbid a text, from an angry Rick saying, "I've had it with Piesanos. We got to blast them tomorrow. Let them know who's the boss."
But wait a minute. So you mean he's got somebody doing his tweets for him and they're still capitalizing every word?
Yeah, that's some sort of bizarre strategy. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just because you didn't know how to work the thing.
Well, let's go back to Ric Flair trying to work the thing over at Piesanos.
You don't have to call me like that, sir.
Don't ever talk.
You don't have to call me like that, sir.
You don't have to do this to me. If you really me and my family.
I'm not familiar.
I didn't do one thing wrong.
Let me stop it there because there's another thing where the translation's wrong. He's saying you don't have to do this and humiliate me in front of my family. And I guess that means cutting him off? Because again, they didn't kick him out at this point. They only cut him off. Right?
Well, and it's according to what the guy is telling him, that's the story. But, well, it's a little embarrassing when they have to come and say, yeah, Dad can't have any more fucking Coors or whatever the case.
Yeah, I'm here with my entire family. You may notice none of them are here with me right now. They're all in the parking lot waiting for this to end. Let's go back.
Yeah, that's one thing. I would think somebody in the family would have said maybe it's not worth the consternation, Rick, but go ahead.
Ric Flair at Piesanos.
Walk into the bathroom.
And you cuss on my kitchen manager.
You're a kid I accosted. Really? What world do you live in?
The same world you
What world do you live in? How did I accost him? Did I touch him?
Cuss him. You said cuss.
I never say a cuss word. You know, is that his word against yours? I didn't say one cuss word.
Okay, we're good.
So now this goes into whatever the manager heard from the kitchen manager.
Yes.
About either Ric Flair touched him or cussed him.
You know what? I think Rick, when he said you cussed my kitchen,
You cussed my Kissinger.
When you cussed Kissinger.
That's what Nixon frequently said.
Yes.
You cussed my Kissinger.
And often Angie Dickinson as well. But when you cussed my kitchen manager, Rick thought he said you accosted my kitchen. He said, I didn't accost him. They can't understand what each other are saying because of the potential chemical imbalances that are going on in each brain here.
Let's go back to Ric Flair's confrontation with the Egyptian, Gainesville, Florida, Piesanos.
Let's go.
God. No, ma'am, I'm going to give you $1,000 tip just to say to him, kiss my ass. You walk outside here.
You don't have to be disrespectful to me, sir. We're being.
I know. You're disrespecting me.
How am I disrespectful?
Telling me to leave.
I'm not telling you to leave. We're just telling you that you're cut off.
Oh, I'm cut off because I'm drunk? Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's stop it there because there's really the bone of contention, I guess.
The crux of the matter.
Rick said, you told me to leave. The guy said, we didn't tell you to leave. We told you you're cut off.
Well, that may be the same thing as telling him you got to leave.
You think I'm here for the pizza? Woo!
Yeah. This pizza was a shits. I just came for the fucking bourbon.
The garlic knots taste like crap.
The kamikazes.
It don't matter if you're famous or not. It's the
Here,
same
ma'am, please give yourself $1,000 tip.
All right, let me do it.
$1,000 tip. This guy and I are so cool. She and I are cool. And along comes the Egyptian.
There's the Egyptian.
I'll say it again. You're a dipshit.
You have to get out of here right now.
Oh, I'm leaving. Trust me. I won't come back again.
Thank God.
Come outside here and talk to me like a man.
Well, let's stop it there. Now he's been kicked out.
Yeah, now you've got to leave. Well, I'm leaving. You can't fire me. I quit. But now
And along comes the Egyptian.
But now, unfortunately, he's said to the guy, well, come outside and talk to me about this like a man or whatever. And the guy's about to say, and you'll hear it, I'm not going to do that. I'm on the clock. He's not going to go out and fight Ric Flair in a parking lot. But then one of the other people at the bar, this guy gets, I'll go outside with you. What did you say to me?
This guy's been sitting there at the end of the bar listening. Again, there are other patrons there. It's not like Ric Flair's the only person there. There are other people at the bar.
This guy's 6 feet away listening through this whole fucking exchange.
And as it's happening, him and one of the other patrons that are next to him, I don't even know if they know each other, but they're looking at each other. Yeah, everyone's like, what the hell's happening here?
It looks like an old Candid Camera where Buster Keaton is doing a bit at the counter.
Well, let's go back to this audio. Ric Flair's just challenged a manager, or at least asked him to come outside.
I'm not going to do that because I'm on the clock.
You, of course you are. You're on the pussy clock.
Let me stop right there. That's my favorite line.
Clock.
That's my favorite line in the whole thing. I'm on the clock. Yeah, you are. You're on the pussy clock.
Hey, you dipshit. You're on the pussy clock.
Well, let's go back to the pussy clock and Ric Flair.
I'm gonna stop.
Hey, you want to go out and talk with me in the parking lot? Because I don't work here. I don't give a shit. We'll talk tonight.
What's that?
You heard me.
What's that?
No, sir. Please stop. Please stop. Okay?
What did you just say to me? What did you just say to me?
Let me stop it there. So a guy stands up and he says, and I love what he says. He goes, "You want to go to the parking lot? I'll go to the parking lot. I don't work here. I don't give a shit."
And then the voice of reason is coming from the woman saying, "Don't do that." Is the waitress that's about to get $1,000 tip if somebody doesn't beat Rick up first. And she's going, no, don't do that. Don't make her do that.
See, that's the endurance test for the staff at these places. Can we get this guy out of here in one piece before anyone kicks his ass and he doesn't give us this giant tip that he's been promising us for hours? All right, well, he's been challenged. This is almost the end here.
Excuse me.
I brought my whole family here.
I need one of those little bar straws for big
Do you know how many?
Just one.
Just one?
I'm not mad. I have no reason to be mad.
Well, that was the guy filming this ordering.
Yeah, he was asking for more mayonnaise or something. Get a cup of mayonnaise. I don't know what he's saying. Just one.
Ric Flair heard everything everyone said until the guy said, "I'll go in the parking lot with you." Then all of a sudden, "What did you say?
What did you say?
What? What did you say to me?"
Are you addressing me, sir?
Again, it's he put this out there. No one knew anything about any of this until he decided to bring his war with Piesanos to the public forum. And now here we are, Ric Flair. The next day, I have an article here from TMZ Sports. Ric Flair is sharing regret over losing his cool at the Gainesville pizza joint over the weekend, saying he should have just walked right out the minute things got heated. Nate joined the MJ Morning Show on Q105 to share his side of things on Wednesday, and while he does feel bad for how things went down, he also felt he needed to stick up for himself. "It just escalated and I was wrong for getting mad, but I kind of felt like I was defending my position," Flair said. Flair also backtracked on his scathing review of the eatery, admitting he enjoyed his time and his meal there before things went sideways. "I was wrong for losing my temper. When I feel like I'm put in the area where I'm uncomfortable and all of a sudden everything just fell apart, I got upset. I was wrong for getting upset. I probably should have just walked out the door, but it caught me so off guard because we were having a wonderful time. Then all of a sudden, someone in their kitchen said I did something wrong in the bathroom."
See that right? No.
And there's no one there except me and him.
This shit? Is anybody proofreading this shit? The words somebody said I did something wrong in the bathroom shouldn't have been fucking issued. God damn, the people not following the ins and outs of this case.
Oh. Well, yeah, his last comment, "There's no one there except me and him," so it's a he said
That's even worse. God damn it.
Well, what are they saying, though? What are they saying?
Well, originally the story was that apparently that Rick was yelling at the kitchen manager because he wouldn't get out of the fucking shitter. I don't know. That's what it sounded like. But the way that Rick's apology, it sounded like that it's his word against his, that he was acted improperly in the bathroom with another man. I'm not sure he's quelling this goddamn controversy. Can we get him a PR fucking team that can tweet and spell and
Remember, I think he has another year left on his AEW deal at least. So we have that to look forward to.
Maybe he can get the energy drink into all the Piesanos locations as a settlement on this thing. But
that should be the spin. This is what happened when I didn't have my energy drink in the morning. And then you show that, and then the next time you show him buying pizzas for everyone and giving out $1,000 tips like he's Oprah.
I love Rick. I hate this. This is not just for Ric Flair, but it's for any celebrity or people in the public eye. Don't get fucking inebriated in public, because everybody's got a camera and they want to make you look like a dipshit. And if you do have a goddamn public incident where whether you were right or wrong, you were the inebriated one, don't fucking tell people about it. Because then they'll research it and find out that you were probably the goddamn Egyptian your own self.
Never been more disrespected in his life. The guy worked for Jim Herd.
Yeah, yes.
Guy said, I'm going to cut your hair, cut your salary, take your belt. But he gave him pizza. See, no one ever said Jim Herd didn't deliver the pizza.
He delivered the pizza. Good fucking connection there. See that? You can find a fucking segue to the pizza thing, but.
Well, we will stay on top of the Ric Flair restaurant review here on the show. Maybe he'll visit a Cuban place next week. We don't know. Jim, a little more audio before we blow things up and get to Dynamite. Samantha Irvin recently came up on the show. You, in the middle of the review for Backlash, instead of reviewing the three-way women's match, decided to talk about the appreciation you have for what she's doing and how, especially under the new regime, she's being allowed to do it.
Just so I wouldn't be accused of being completely sexist, I didn't want to see a three-way male or female. See, now that sounds even worse than Flair doing improper things in a bathroom. But I didn't want to see the match, but I noticed that Samantha Irvin, she's got the oomph, the facials, the inflection. She's really delivering it. And the whole thing, I don't know that I ever said I hate this woman specifically. She has done something that has offended me, and I resent her presence on earth as a person as much as I can't. And still, in a lot of cases, I can't get the women, female ring announcers. It doesn't sound the same as the Finkels and the Buffers and the Lennons and the having that gravitas, but she stood out there in that environment and I complimented her for it. And now I hate that, because the comments passed in the night, we recorded it, and then by the time it was released, there was a comment from her that apparently, as you're going to talk about, that she likes me, and I hate for people to think that I said that I liked her just because she said she liked me. I want it to be taken as a legitimate compliment rather than just her stroking my taint and me stroking hers, or whatever the case.
No, that's not the case, and no one is doing that. And for the record, I liked her a lot longer than you did. You just are a Johnny-come-lately front-runner here. But
well, you've had a longer relationship with stroking her taint.
Again, not what we're saying, but what we are saying is that she said something about you, and we have some audio here. This is from Not Sam Clips on YouTube. Let's go to this. She's talking about being a big fan of Shawn Michaels.
I always drop the Royal Rumbles, 95 and 96
Sure.
are my favorites. Royal Rumble 96 specifically, and his whole run of 1996. So Royal Rumble, WrestleMania 12.
The boyhood dream finally coming true.
Yeah, all of that.
You were
Every
with
match of that year I watched over and over and over and over and over again. SummerSlam with Vader, Psycho Sid.
You must have gotten real upset when he hit Jose Lothario with that camera.
I know. Don't play Jose like that.
I know.
Just terrible.
This guy's a legend.
Just terrible.
Hey, stop one second. But I'm gaining a new appreciation for her, that she's not just one of these girls that wanted to fucking do this to be on TV and graduate to making major motion pictures and sitcoms. But that's just...
Yeah, I saw Nikki Bella on TV, and I said, I'd like to bounce.
Yeah, she's not the Bella generation. Bella inspired.
Guys, terrible guy.
Really?
But he got what was coming to him.
Well,
Shawn got his title back.
You know, look, Jim Cornette doesn't like me.
Jim Cornette does not like you.
I shouldn't have said that.
No, probably not. He does not like you?
That's what I've heard.
Oh.
But it's his fault that I'm this way. I think he thinks that I'm too much. That's what I've heard. But I grew up watching him. I blame him fully.
I mean, Jim Cornette was a lot.
He was a lot. And now I'm a lot. And I grew
Right.
up watching him. So it's absolutely his fault.
Yeah, he had that tennis racket, the bright jackets
Screaming
and
all the
everything.
time.
Screaming all the time.
All the time.
Right.
Yep.
You're putting on a show.
Yep.
That's what this is. It's show business.
It's showbiz.
I get it.
All right. Well, there it
Who's
is.
the host, by the way?
I believe this is Sam Roberts. He's been on some of these WWE documentaries.
Have I ever heard of him before?
I don't know. I mean, maybe from these WWE documentaries.
Yeah, I don't know. The name doesn't ring a bell. But anyway, no, I feel bad that Samantha thinks that I don't like her. Like I said, it was more the concept of the women's voices. They don't get it when they're but at the same time, she's got a little something there going on. So I noticed her announcing, and also you gotta have some kind of sympathy for what she's gone through, and being able to come back and be on television and perform at this level after losing her husband. You heard about her husband getting bit by that, what was it, a jellyfish, and dying? The crocodile hunter, Steve Irvin.
See, you had me for a second. I'm thinking you have some awful story. It's Steve Irwin, and that had no relation to her. He's from Australia. He died.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so her husband didn't get bit by a jellyfish.
It was a stingray, I think.
Well, stingray, jellyfish, you say tomato, I say tomato. But it wasn't her.
It wasn't.
It was
no.
Somebody else.
Somebody else.
Never mind.
A very famous somebody else.
Well, but pretty soon, hey, if she keeps plugging away, she can be famous enough to get bit by a jellyfish.
Well, let's hope not. She's doing a good job, and the more you hear her talking, she's got that Beatles tattoo, which gives me a whole new respect for her. And now you hear her, she's a fan. She didn't like the Psycho Sid matches with Shawn. Those are the matches where Shawn started getting booed, if you remember right.
Yeah. So she's one of the good ones, one of the good female ring announcers. We can consider her one of the family, one of the cult, one of the people.
All right, we are here.
That sounded like the old world news tonight. It's 11 o'clock. Time for the Al Shuttlecotty News. And now, the star of the Al Shuttlecotty News, Al Shuttlecotty. Channel 9, Cincinnati. He was a legend.
Who's your favorite national nightly news broadcaster?
Well, I got to be honest, I really enjoyed Murrow. And I really don't think that anybody has been able to successfully fill his shoes. Edward R. Murrow would be my favorite newsman nationally.
That's right. A lot of my friends went to Edward R. Murrow High School in Brooklyn.
Well, that's better than going to James Woods High School in Quahog.
I guess so.
Are you going to tell the people why? And by the way, you have not said a goddamn thing yet about the fact that my lawn mowers, my yard mowers, my grass mowers, my gardeners, as you say, are fully in action here at the castle. And you haven't heard a thing. Your super hearing is a myth.
Sorry, I was moving something over here to get the noise out of the way. I heard a lot of noise in the background, so I was off for mic for a second. What did you say?
Well, anyway, we time traveled so that we could take a short break, try to clear my internet up, and now we are going to give the full Dynamite report. Ratings are in the whole 9 yards, right? We got all that left to go here in the program.
We're going to talk Dynamite. We're going to talk the ratings, but before we get there, I wanted to play you something because someone in the Cult of Cornette Facebook group, Victor Rivera, not that one, not the famous America's champion.
All right.
Victor Rivera. But Victor Rivera, the Cult of Cornette member, posted this, and it's pretty interesting, and a lot of the listeners have commented. I wanted to get your thoughts. It's an interview from July of 2019. We played some of his interviews before, this Chris Van Vliet guy.
Ah, the Dutchman up there. He's the Van Vliet?
I don't know if he's a Dutchman.
I bet he might be friends with Ploon and Falco.
Well, maybe so.
Over there in the Netherlands.
Well, speaking of friends, he was
Where were they from? Apeldoorn?
I believe so. And speaking of friends, he was sitting here talking to two of the leaders of all friends, Matt and Nick Jackson. Now, I want to remind you, this is July 2019, so this is months before Dynamite even debuted, but after the announcement that AEW was going to exist. Before Tony Khan was the face of the company, when it was still the Bucks, Omega, and Cody.
We remember those halcyon days before we had to look at Tony Khan on a regular basis. But yes, the announcements had been made. The flurry of speculation was going around, but they hadn't actually debuted on television yet.
So let's see how this holds up. Again, this is an interview with Chris Van Vliet, July 2019, before Dynamite even started, with the Young Bucks.
Well, what size venues can you start running, though, when you start touring?
It depends. Like the UK, I feel like we could probably do a pretty good sized one, wouldn't you think? And probably Toronto as well.
The rule of thumb I always go off of is if it's a big city, it's a big building. Small city, smaller building.
Yeah.
Oh, good
I think we're
Lord.
going to look at 5.
Let me stop right there.
Oh, good
What
Lord.
a brilliant philosophy, or someone who never booked shows ever. Big city, big building. Little city, little building. If it's a medium city, I don't know what we'll do.
Well, we gotta find a medium building. My God. Okay, and just once again, I can give you chapter and verse on examples of promotions in days past in the territories that have opened different markets, and some was feast and some was famine, and it didn't have anything to do with the size of the city. It had to do with the size of the crowd of people that were interested in that city. And a lot of times you will find that when you start a promotion, you will do better in the smaller markets first because they have not seen so much live wrestling. They have not been burnt out by the bigger shows with the bigger stars and the bigger budgets. And you can get in there and pop a house. In the first 1 year of active Smoky Mountain Wrestling shows, our biggest crowd was not in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was in Pikeville, Kentucky, 2,000 people. Figure that out. So anyway.
Let's go back to the arena bookers, Matt and Nick Jackson.
5 to 12,000 seaters.
Yeah, that sounds fair. I mean, that's what's on the schedule right now. So I think we'll plan accordingly too. We want to get too far ahead, and then something happens like what happened with New Japan in Dallas. You know what I mean? I'm not to take a shot at them. They shot high, but they couldn't fill it up. Like I just don't want pictures on the internet of empty seats. That's our biggest thing. Like we want to plan ahead and be smart about this.
But is it?
Let me stop right there. They don't want pictures of empty seats on the internet.
There has been more pictures of empty chairs in AEW events than there has in the Bergdorf Goodman furniture catalog over the last year and a half. So I think they lost that fucking battle right off the bat.
And these two are two of the primary reasons why there are so many empty seats. These two idiots. Let's go back to this.
So is it better to sell out a 4,000 seat place or to put 6,000 in a 10,000 seat place?
An economics guy, the finance guy will say 6,000. Yeah. But I don't know.
It's all about perception. The internet's so funny. Like,
it's so funny. Yeah.
Like it's hard to even explain. Like, I don't know what is right. You know,
I put these people in charge of any fucking thing.
That's the dim-witted one, Nick Jackson, trying to.
No, you got to narrow it down a little bit more than that. But who put these two blithering simpletons in charge of anything? They had never booked a building. They had never promoted a show. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't mean to go off on a tangent.
And it's important to note they meant more then than they do
now.
Look at how things have worked out. Again, this is 5 years ago. It's an interesting time capsule. Back to this.
I think the bottom line is the dollar, right? So, like, how big was that building? Okay, how much did that building cost? Did it cost more? Did you make the money back with the 6? Like, it's economics. Like, I don't know. Like, me as a professional wrestler, I'll go, I'd rather sell it at 4,000 so it looks awesome. We rock that building.
The perception of it is you sold it out. No matter how many people you put in the building, it was called a sellout. So it's always going to look better.
Then if you run small buildings forever, you'll always sell out.
Exactly.
but at the same time, we're ambitious. And I can't see Tony being like, let's just run theaters forever. Like, he's like us, and Cody and Kenny, they're the same. Like, we're going to shoot high, and we'll probably do, some massive buildings also.
But you're going to get to some cities where there's going to be a real arbitrage between like, all right, it's either this building, it's 2,000, or this building where the NBA team plays.
Yes.
You know?
We're going to have to make a decision
It's going to be tough. And I guarantee you there's going to be cities where we don't do as good as we usually do in Chicago. And that's just the nature of the business.
Well, there it
Yeah,
is.
let me also mention, he said the financial guys, clearly they are not, would say, well, it's better to have the 6,000 people in the 10,000 seat building, but as wrestlers, we'd rather sell out the 4,000 seat building. And I've said many times, you'd rather sell out a small building than have a little bit bigger crowd in a bigger building, much bigger building, but not just because of the atmosphere, because these dipshits don't understand that the 10,000 seat building costs maybe 2.5 or 3 times what the 4,000 seat building costs. So the financial guys might very well tell you upon further examination that if you put 6,000 people in a 10,000 seat building, it's still going to be more expensive than you just put the 4,000 people in a 4,000 seat building, because the extra 2,000 people may not have paid for the goddamn upgrade in rent from the major arena to the struggling secondary building in town. All these things come into play. And then again, it's the difference in the interest level in a town. Some towns, even in thriving territories, when we've been going through the Mid-South wrestling dates, I mentioned that even in a record year for business, Biloxi, Mississippi, and Beaumont, Texas can still kiss my big fat white ass. They just, and Biloxi had a goddamn 18,000 seat building because it's right there on the coast where all the tourists went. The only place in Mississippi where tourists would go at that point, and probably still. There's no set formula. These guys are just, they've sat in the car and dreamed this without anybody that's actually done it explaining it to them. Sort of like Tony's booking. And I'll make one more statement, is that, again, their level of trepidation for it's going to be a struggle, but we're going to buckle down, put our nose in. No, it's a foregone conclusion. We're going to do this and that and the other thing. And it's the same tone that Tony had when I spoke to him, which I spoke to him before this interview was conducted. And I've mentioned that there was no question in his mind that this was going to take over the world and Vince better be fucking ducking for cover. And it was ludicrous. You can't go into war with a general who is convinced that you're going to mow everybody down and fucking not suffer a casualty. Because that's ridiculous.
Again, serious people knew what to think of Tony and his plans, and that's when Tony was more serious. Look at Tony now, 5 years on after AEW began. Looks like he's been through hell and back. And that was just Wednesday.
Yes. And then he was scared for his life before that.
But this shows you a little bit of the arrogance in the early days. You know, even Cody and all the success he's had, he wasn't an executive. And they all thought they were just going to be executives. It was just like that. Hey, Triple H is an EVP, so now we can all be EVPs.
Well, but now in his defense, Cody is the one who took it seriously and was an EVP and was trying to find talent, was trying to fucking get involved in the television production, was trying to do the other things, creative. And we've heard from Kenny that said, I'm the worst EVP. I don't want to do this. And the other two here... No, that's what he said.
I know.
I'm not knocking him.
We played the audio. He said that he's an awful EVP.
Yeah, and he didn't want to be. It's not his wheelhouse, as they say. And these other two have been sitting around telling themselves, oh, we can do this and that and the other thing. We'll be the big stars and we'll change the world. And the only thing they're doing is hurting the Big Bang Theory's ratings.
It's them and Tony. They can't sit in a room and look at each other and say, you're the problem. Instead, they're all going to find the solution and fix this thing. The Young Bucks aren't over. They're never going to be over. They can't do this. They've proven
they
it.
will never be over.
Tony can't book. It's been exposed time and time again. And look at where we are 5 years on. I just saw an article that went up today in advance of the ratings with all the ratings for the last year. The main rating and the key demo, everything's down. Everything's down, and they're still pretending like they have any idea what they were doing. They rode a wave of good grace because people wanted an upstart to do good, and people wanted Vince McMahon to fail. the upstart lost its momentum. It's not all because Vince McMahon's gone and Triple H is in charge. It's because of the people running the ship, or captaining the ship, I guess I should say.
Well, and they've gone through several pieces of major talent that at the start were at least in charge of their business or the business that surrounded them, the creative, that they could, and that has been lost as well. And now it's all Tony and it's all this indie-minded stuff. And you mentioned just a minute ago, they had momentum because people wanted them to succeed from the start. This was a gift that they were given that I mentioned before, that almost no other, I'm trying to think of a wrestling promotion, either in the territory days or here in the modern times, that is started as hot as it was going to get, and then is usually when you start something, it has to get an audience, it has to find the fans, and they have to find it, and a blah, 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 and you build. And again, we can quote chapter and verse of markets in the territories that were started, and they never started hot and cooled off. They went the other way. They started because it was brand new. When Jerry Jarrett opened Louisville for the first 6 weeks, he thought he was going to have to close Louisville because it wasn't making any money. But then suddenly the people came, and then it popped. And it was the same thing with Lexington, that I personally witnessed the town open. And it grew and then plateaued, and then it would ebb and fall based on the business. But nothing ever starts, with this much goodwill and this much interest, this much publicity, and these big of a crowds, and then goes steadily. I've never seen that before, but that's because so many people wanted this thing to be good that they assumed it was good at the start, and they were watching it, and it took a while to settle in that these people aren't really on command of what they're fucking doing. And then the attrition comes. That's very unusual.
And they couldn't, and not that everyone can, but specifically when you're completely off base as often as Tony is. And especially like the Young Bucks, who, for people who don't think it's ego and money driven for them, that's all it is. That's all it's ever been.
Yeah.
But they can't look at themselves and evaluate themselves and see the problems. Instead, everything else has been the problem. Jim Cornette was the problem. CM Punk was the problem. Cody was the problem. Although now everyone's like, oh, that wasn't it. Yeah, it was. Cody was the problem. Everyone was a problem or is a problem. They took their fans for granted, and they thought that their creative vision would somehow keep interest that was going to grow and be excited, and it's gone. There's no excitement in these shows. This is a hell of a lead up to the Dynamite review. There's no excitement in their shows. Nobody's over. Their baby faces are all dead.
But and I'm telling you again, we said this 5 years ago. The biggest reason at the root of this, not just Tony's booking, but the fact that Tony and the people he surrounds himself with, that he listens to the most, cannot pick talent. They think their friends are the greatest things in the world. They think that regardless of what everybody else in the world would look at and see, no, this guy's great. And the talent has been specious from the beginning, because for every Bryan Danielson, you also got a fucking Orange Cassidy that's been shoved down everybody's throat when it wasn't funny to begin with. And here's that's from the start. I got a guy that's a fucking joke. I'm going to push him. Why would you do that to begin with? But then I got a guy that's a joke that does the same thing he did 5 years ago, and I've put him on almost every one of my televisions, and I dressed up like him at Halloween a couple of years ago, and I don't understand why my business is tanking. They have no eye for talent. They have eye for their friends.
Well, again, that was a 2019 Young Bucks interview. You can go through the archive of the Experience in a Drive-Thru, hear how we've been covering this stuff in real time for the last 5 years. But let's talk real time. Let's talk AEW Dynamite from a few days ago, Jim. Another episode in Canada. Another episode where I wondered how many people were going to stay to the end. They drove me to the Knick game. I said, I'm going to watch the Knick game live instead of on DVR because of this show.
I think some of the people live in the building in Edmonton were trying to make the last part of the Knicks game on this fucking thing. I don't. Now they're still using the Open. Remember the show Open when the Buckaroos took control of the feed last week? We control what you see and hear. It was the Outer Limits, all right. They had a special Open made that only featured the Buckaroos and Jungle Jackoff and Okody. And I thought, okay, that was cute for the week that they did this deal, right? But they're still using that Open. They're gonna run with that Open. Like it is again, Tony Khan is the boss supposedly. And we know that he's not hooked up to a machine because he was smiling the next day after the incident at the draft with the flea collar on. So how have they still, this doesn't make any sense. You don't have, with Vince McMahon, you had the evil owner, he was the owner. He could do all that stuff. And you had Steve Austin, the older guy that really didn't care whether they fired him or not, right? So that made some kind of sense. Now you have a publicly traded company under the TKO umbrella, but you have the chief content officer, high-ranking executive, ex-wrestler, and member of the board of directors who's also a once-in-a-while wrestler. And everybody in the world knows who both of them are. That kind of works. You get logic out of that. Does this make any sense that the heels that commandeered the show last week, they say they've got a contract where they can't be fired, but that doesn't mean Tony can't call the goddamn production truck and say, play the regular opener, I'm firing all of you. Does it? Help me.
It makes no sense, and they've tried really hard to talk their way around the booking flaws. Like you said, the ironclad contract, we can't be fired. Tony was injured 2 weeks ago, still can't leave Jacksonville. Kenny was injured a week ago, he's in the hospital. But everyone's able to make video announcements on the show. Again, Tony's producing remotely from Jacksonville. So why would they have this open to the show? They can't explain what they do because these are guys that like stuff from the Attitude Era, but don't even understand how the stuff that didn't work didn't work.
Can you imagine how much of a simpleton you have to be to not even understand how fucking Shitstain's writing was? That simple?
I do not think the Young Bucks or Tony Khan have any idea how to write coherent wrestling television. And they've proven it time and time again. Tony Khan has proven it time and time again.
So anyway, we get out of the open and they're in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And the first thing you hear is the music of our little boy, our little puppy Pockets. And he is opening this show. Has any wrestler in AEW history, I'm talking about Bryan Danielson, I'm talking about CM Punk, I'm talking about Cody, who's now the biggest star in the world, I'm talking about any major wrestling name that has wandered into AEW, been on TV as much, had a better win-loss record, been protected and pushed as much as this worthless schlub. And again, visually, for anybody except the dwindling AEW audience, it looks, what is this, a fucking parody wrestling show? Or is this Nickelodeon? Or is this a joke? You can't honestly say that anybody's going to look at this fucking guy and take this program seriously. And that's the first thing you see out of the gate. And he's wrestling Trent in their hot feud. And at the top of the program, right before the open that we just mentioned, Edge had come in the back and been interviewed and announced that he was going to fight Brody King in the main event on this program in a no disqualification match. So the first match on the program is the company mascot and a fucking job guy. And even though they've just plugged a no disqualification match with Edge for later on in the program, these two jobber clowns are up in the cheap seats within the first 3 minutes. And it was 20 minutes before this fucking thing was over with. So,
did you see the spot that everyone was complaining about because it's ridiculous?
I don't watch any of this because it's not wrestling and it's not serious. It's not worth my time.
Coming off Tony on the NFL Network putting over the devastation of the pile driver, how it's been banned in multiple states, including Tennessee, Orange Cassidy took a pile driver on the steel steps, and he was fine. He was able to continue. He is the smallest. He's like Adam Cole Riho size, although he has a little bit of definition for a tiny, minuscule guy.
But look at that fucking face.
He's no-selling pile drivers on the steel steps.
A lot of people have said on Twitter, well, he's in shape. He's an athlete. Well, goddamn, so is the goddamn guy that changes my oil that works out on the weekends. Fuck, it's ridiculous. Look at his face. Look at his demeanor. He's a goddamn schlub. If you walked into a homeless mission and saw him sitting in the corner, it would not be out of place. So anyway.
But you're right. You know, again, we look at where we are today, and it's not all just because of the NBA playoffs. How many weeks did they start the show with Orange Cassidy? Not recognizing that that wasn't something pulling people in or causing the people that were there to stay. That the first quarter rating was slanted because of the Big Bang Theory, but there was always a big drop-off. They kept putting him in the first quarter, the same way they keep doing the overrun, and it doesn't help them. It hurts them. They keep doing the same. It's insanity.
That's what I said. The Big Bang Theory is down now. This is the first television program in history of broadcasting that was so bad that it killed the goddamn ratings of the lead-in. So anyway, 20 minutes of that, and then we got the Lollipop Guild earlier tonight in an SUV with the cameraman in the back so that we could see them parking in Tony Khan's spot. Tony Khan had a parking spot. Oh, right here. And they have the fake conversation that's so, it's not tongue-in-cheek because tongue-in-cheek implies that something is funny. It's just phony. And not phony in an insincere heel way, but phony in a we are acting way.
Yep. And why does Tony have a parking spot in Edmonton if he's in Jacksonville?
Well, you know, they didn't know. They booked that parking spot 3 weeks ago before he got pile driven. Because parking in Edmonton is a fucking bitch.
Has Tony Khan ever driven a car?
You know, that's an interesting question.
Like Robert Moses redesigned all the roads here in the New York tri-state area. He never drove a car in his life. Has Tony ever driven a car? Not to compare him to Robert Moses.
Well, but no, because he has people to
although
do
he
that
has killed a few cities.
He has people to do that kind of thing for him, but even Vince would drive, you know, from his house down to the store and we'd get lunch.
Okay, and here's the question. If you're trying to kiss up to Tony and really get in good in AEW, and Tony says, hey, hop in, let's go get something to eat, would you get in the car if he was driving? Just based on everything you see with him, everything you hear from him, his personality, his behavior, would you let him drive you around?
No, and of course, and I am picky about who I ride with, but with Vince, for, 3 or 4 miles, I was okay. He couldn't really do 100 miles an hour on the road in Greenwich, but I had to quit riding with him too after the fucking interstate incident we've told a story on. But no, I'm not putting Tony Khan in charge of my goddamn safety. Anyway, after the Buckaroos were finished finding a parking spot, they went into the package of what happened to Kenny last week. And then a last week promo with Jungle Jackoff where he was trying to act like a tough guy. Man. And he's channeling I guess he thinks it's in his genes that he's a great actor, and he's trying to channel his dad's acting ability some kind of way or whatever. But looking at this again, at this child, he was a good, sympathetic, underdog babyface, middle of the card guy with appeal, and you could beat him up because he was cute, and you could get some heat on a heel, and he was good in that spot. He didn't know how to call a match, so it depended on who he was in with.
Yeah, now he looks like he's selling weed at the Peach Pit after dark.
Yes. And now he just looks, it reminds me of if Marco Stunt had become a fucking pot dealer. It just...
He looks like a kid, and he can't pull it off. He doesn't have the voice to pull it off, but then you can't believe what he's saying because, I hate to make it a size thing, but he's a little guy. When you watch him walk out to the ring with everyone else, it stands out. He's trying as hard as he can to look tough. He's a little guy. He's not going to do anything. And he's putting on this act. He looks like a kid putting on a show as much as the Bucks do.
And that's the problem, is that even some of these guys that, like we talked about with Kingston, if he'd worked the gimmick that he looks like he has instead of the one he thinks he has, he'd got over better. A lot of these guys have some appeal in some category that you could build on, but they see themselves as differently that nobody else sees them as, and so they won't do that thing. They won't do that thing. And that's, that's where they need a producer, a booker, a boss. We don't care if you think you're a fucking astronaut. You're really a goddamn fucking football player. Whatever. I don't know. So would you like to talk about Kenny's interview from the bed in the medical facility? That was not a hospital room. They found a fucking urgent care somewhere that probably in his hometown that was friendly to the cause, didn't they?
I don't know where they shot it from. I was wondering. He seemed very serious.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. He did a decent promo here in his own way. And I know a lot of people have said, oh, now Cornette's come around. He loves Kenny. No, I've complimented him on a couple of things and a couple of times when he said something logical for once. And here I'm going to say he did a decent promo here in his own way because he still talks like a breathless, douchey pussy, but now it sounds like he means what he's saying in this interview, because part of it is if your guts were goddamn on the verge of exploding, you wouldn't be able to really get too awful over the top mad or whatever. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? At least in this interview, in this medical facility bed, he sounded like he meant what he was saying. Maybe he's a little more clear-headed now that he's gone through this, he's had medical supervision here for the past several weeks. But before, he not only did the breathy douchebaggery promo type of thing, but it didn't make any sense and he didn't believe anything he said. Here, at least, he's getting the story over and it sounds like he means it. Now, having said that, he may be our only hope because they're saying he's an EVP too, and he's now decided he's going to make matches. So he's made a challenge to the Lollipop Guild to face Team AEW for Anarchy in the Arena, which will be FTR and two more guys that are going to be revealed apparently tonight in the program from what he says. And so now we're to assume that he'll be making the babyface matches when the Buckaroos are doing the heel shit, I guess, right? In the logic of what they're trying to do.
From the hospital, I guess.
The hospital. Well, if Tony can do it from the goddamn green screen in Jacksonville, he can do it from the hospital in Winnipeg, Caney.
This show is falling off and is such a mess right now. Now we're going to have multiple people making matches, maybe. Here's the other big problem, and again, it goes into the big issue. Tony Khan doing an injury angle with his dad in the ring, which has never been followed up on this show. Kenny Omega doing a promo about how he may never wrestle again and then getting hit in the guts and having to do promos from the hospital. These are big angles that were wasted on the Young Bucks and Jack Perry. Because if you look at almost anyone else in that company, let's take Moxley. If Moxley all of a sudden punched Tony Khan in the stomach and yelled at Chad or something. And then the next week, Moxley put Omega in the hospital on its face without changing anything. It would mean more than the Bucks and Jack Perry doing it. Even though they're EVPs.
What would you think if Tony Khan, if CM Punk had we wouldn't be told, oh, this is a work, but if the story had come out that CM Punk had put Tony Khan in front face lock instead of fucking Jungle Jack off, and Tony Khan said, I'm going to get goddamn, when he was still healthy, Kenny to do something about this, that would have drawn some fucking money, wouldn't it?
Anyone there, that's the thing. Doing an angle where Kenny's hospitalized, which is legit, apparently, that he's really having diverticulitis surgery at some point, and that Tony Khan would be injured off TV, it could have been something to make a heel over a couple weeks with a good build. It could have been something to cause an increase in interest in the product. It could have been something to take someone who was a heel and get them over to a whole new level. Instead, because of the acting skills of the Bucks and Jack Perry, because Okada is just standing there like a fish. What is he doing with these? If Okada had done it, if they had brought in Okada and they not tied him with the Bucks and he had punched Tony Khan in the stomach and injured Omega, he'd be the biggest heel in the company right now. Instead, no one takes any of this seriously.
He's the adult chaperone for the fucking children.
So, I mean, that's my thing. That's my big takeaway with the Omega promo. And, he, again, he's not, other than being in the hospital, hi, Kenny here. Like, he seemed fine. Yeah. He wasn't grimacing or anything. It's all a big missed opportunity. They're finally doing something where the owner of the company and EVPs get beat up, and it means less than anything else they've done up to this point.
And then, after I said some kind words about Kenny's promo, I'd just like to say that he finished sitting there in a fucking bed in a medical facility hooked up to several monitors. The way he closed this serious promo was by blowing us a kiss, saying goodnight, and banging us. Mwah, good night, and bang.
It's got to be a better way to phrase that.
Got to be a better way to do it.
Hi, I'm in a hospital. You may notice I look really injured. Show it, act it, be injured, not just, I have tape on my stomach. I'm obviously injured. There's a wire somewhere in the background here. They fuck up everything. I mean, there's nothing they get right. It's unbelievable.
Well, I want to announce to you that I completely blew off the next segment, but you said you watched it, and I should have watched it. So tell me what I missed when Tony Schiavone interviewed Serena Deeb on the stage.
Oh, boy. Let me start by saying, of all the women in AEW or throughout wrestling, I'm always impressed by Serena Deeb in the ring. Always. Yes. Even if it's a match I'm not interested in, if I start watching it, she pulls me in. She's really good.
She was a Rip Rogers student for quite some time.
AEW, the last several weeks, has started a new thing where they do this segment. It's kind of the women's cringy segment of the night, where it's always on the stage. They shoot it so the fans are behind the wrestler and the interviewer, either Renee or Shivani. They've done this now. We saw one that was really cringy with Mercedes and Willow a few weeks ago. Serena Deeb is so talented in the ring. She's not talented on the mic. And they gave her way too much time, and she got way too distracted by the fans who were kind of distracted and not really into what was happening here, and they were chanting. She had a serious thing she was talking about, having seizures, and it was in the middle of this promo that wasn't working, and then Toni Storm came out to confront her, and then we got the Toni Storm acting segment of the show. It was really bad. I feel bad saying that because I like Serena Deeb.
They were trying.
But,
they were given no direction, sent out there for too long a time, and left twisting in the wind. Is what you're basically saying.
Who's there to teach the women how to do promos? Not just in AEW, but business wide. I mean, I was astounded how bad this was.
Well, I've zipped
You
through.
thought she
I
would have
saw
cracked it. I mean, when you see this, you're like, oh, she must have something she's been working on. Now, I hate to say that, but you think she must have something she's been working on. She's going to take here and, have something to say. She got thrown off. It was slow. The fans took over, and these women's ramp segments are disasters every week.
The end of the thing was what got my attention when basically after they had their verbal confrontation that I skipped through, Serena just hit Toni Storm with one punch and knocked her out and walked off. What has happened now? Toni Storm was supposed to be the star of the women's division, and she's got the butler Luther, and she's got the wannabe the understudy Maria May. And she would have all this attention, and they did that for a few weeks, and suddenly Maria May is the one that's wrestling, and apparently she's a babyface, and Toni Storm's getting knocked out with one punch by a girl who may be talented but is middle card at best on their women's roster in the way they've used her, and certainly not the highest paid woman in town. So what the fuck with Toni Storm now? She's an afterthought already.
Again, whatever you think of the women there, they don't know how to book a women's division. It's been proven over 5 years. They can't book a women's division. They don't know what they're doing. And a lot of people have a lot of really bad ideas.
Well, this interview that we just spoke of was followed up by the aforementioned Maria May wrestling Harley Cameron, better known as QTV Girl. And Saraya is now the manager or valet of Harley Cameron. Why was she in... We haven't seen Harley Cameron wrestle on this program. She may wrestle on the subsidiary programs. And so why is Saraya, the big star that was going to be a game changer last year, now seconding this horrible fucking green girl against the understudy of Toni Storm that just got knocked out, but now the Toni Storm's understudy is apparently a babyface and fucking getting wins all over the goddamn place. And is involved with the new Japanese chick because somehow this ended with her, the new Japanese girl, whatever her name is, getting in the ring to drink champagne with Maria, tease kissing her, and then both of them did a stripper dance. The fuck is going on there?
Again, the women's division has been a disaster from day one. They don't know how to book it. Saraya, who knows? Is it that they want to keep her out of the ring to prevent any injury? Who knows? But
to herself or someone else?
They made a big deal about her coming in. Does she mean more or less today than she meant before she came in when she was off TV?
I forgot she was still there.
And this Harley Cameron, she's got a personality, but who greenlit her having a match this long on TV? On Dynamite. Not on Collision or Rampage. On Dynamite. And this was coming off, remember we talked about it on the last show, their tweet feud, where she said hashtag whatever it was, tough girl graps. And Mariah May said, looks more like tough girl gapes. That's this feud. That's this brilliant feud. They're doubling down. Listen, they're putting more of these women's segments on the Dynamite. If you haven't noticed, it's more and more every week since Mercedes Moné got in there. They're doubling down on this women's division stuff, and it's not getting better.
Do they think that the existing AEW fan base will be tuning in every week just to see whether the Japanese girl kisses Maria or not? Because they can kind of see that stuff on the other channels. A little bit better with a little more focus on it, if that's the entertainment they're going for.
Oh, come on. There's like 20 fans of Joshi wrestling that lose their mind every time they almost kiss.
Well, you must be joshing. All right. Anyway, speaking of Malachi Black did a spooky video talking about Edge, and I don't know what the fuck he was talking about. Did you even listen?
No, I mean, he sounds very committed to his act, but it's an act that never gets better. Again, everything on this show is just awful, and it just keeps happening over and over and over. He's in the shadows with a cameraman doing some fucking speech that he's worked on for his weird character. Awful. Enough of this.
So
he was more interesting as a guy in the back with a coffee during someone else's fight That
yes.
he's pretending he's some spooky guy.
Now he should just come out to the ring with a cup of coffee in his hand.
And just be disinterested and then just walk to the back. See, I'd buy that as being the real Malachi Black.
Because since fewer people are interested in him, he might as well be less interested in them. And then we did the Lollipop Guild self-made video where it was all about the Buckaroos and their group, and it was the self-serving over-the-top narration about how great they are. And then it transitions to the Buckaroos in the back at gorilla position doing the fake producer bit. And we've talked about how small time it looks, and it is. And that was what led into the entrance at 4 minutes before the 9 o'clock, top of the 9 o'clock hour, of the world champion, Swerve Strickland, who has also become an afterthought here in this promotion. He came out without Nana, Prince Nana, his manager. We'll probably see why in a minute. Maybe Nana said, after you fucking buried me so bad last week, why would I even walk out there? And I'm not talking about he said that to Swerve. I'm talking he probably said that to the office. But Swerve comes out and pitches to the tape on the screen of last week and what was done to him, blah, blah, blah. And then does the promo on Christian where he tells him, come on out here right now. We're going to settle this thing. Are you about sick of everybody standing by at the gorilla position waiting to be called out to settle things? How do they know? It's every fucking segment, isn't it? On both companies. What the fuck?
Yeah, and I had a bad feeling about this one right away because they have just completely killed Swerve since he won the title when he's clearly a babyface. Once he clearly became a babyface, it was like, all right, let's kill him. And I knew it was coming here. I just knew it was coming because they kill every babyface in AEW.
But when he was terrorizing infants in their cribs and fucking invading people's homes and, leaving them in pools of their own blood, he was a raving babyface. So now that he's the world champion, he gets that shit kicked out of him. He gets left laying on his fucking face, broke, busted, disgusted, dicked by the dangle dong of destiny every time you see him. And in this case, here came Christian along with Dino Douche, Nick Plain, and Nick Plain's mom, who's bigger than everybody except the lizard in the group. And
can I stop you real quick?
Yes, please.
My favorite person in this whole thing, and you and I will disagree on this, Nick Wayne. He looks so punchable, and he's so good as, I don't know if it's really him or not, but just, he's got the shitty facial hair. He just looks like a punk kid hanging out with the wrong crowd. He's the only one in all of this I buy.
Well, it depends on the price. I'm not paying retail. If I buy him, they're going to have to give me a wholesale deal. But Christian, remember we were loving his heel promos. And as himself, with this bunch of ragtag nitwits behind him, But also, he made a rare mistake here because Christian's a smart guy, but to try to get heat, he knocked the hockey team, whoever the fucking hockey team there are. And then when he was doing the promo on Swerve, the world champion, they were still offended about the hockey team and they were chanting, "Let's go Oilers." That's what "Let's go Oilers" over most of the promo about the world champion. Because they don't care about these people. They care about the goddamn hockey team. So then they said they were going to rip out Swerve's gold teeth. And I'm thinking, holy shit. And suddenly, Swerve says, "I didn't say I came alone." And Brian Cage and Bishop Khan and Tia Leone, the rest of Nana's embassy, it was the Mogul embassy, but they lost Rick Ross somewhere along the way, right?
Yeah, this was the payoff for all the months of Swerve having this B team as his crew. This was the payoff for all of that. They finally, for a moment, meant something as his backup.
Yes. And then he said, now that they're in the ring with me, I dare you guys to get in this ring and take my gold teeth. And then what happened here was apparently several things at the same time. Swerve said his cue line, I dare you to take my gold teeth, but you can't. And Swerve's guys apparently missed their cue because Christian was standing there mute because he wasn't supposed to do anything yet. And then Swerve's guys suddenly jump him from behind while the camera is on Christian standing there watching him, and the camera misses the Swerve's group turning on him. And then Swerve's friends rip his clothes off and powerbomb him. And the referees get in and they chuck them out, shit can them. And then Cage presses Swerve and throws him over the top rope like a sack of shit. They clear the desk off. They take forever to awkwardly set Swerve up while he's doing, he can't fight back. He's overwhelmed and just doing nothing. And the two Stooges powerbomb him through the announce desk, and he is left laying unconscious and immobile. Again. 2 weeks in a row.
He's the world champion. You could tell they started blowing it during the chase. He got the belt. Does he feel like the top star in the company? Does he feel like a world champion? Does he feel like a babyface you should care about?
He needs to switch heel again. That's the only time he ever won anything.
They're blowing it with everything.
It's goddamn, it's insane. And can you imagine if Hulk Hogan had won the WWF title and had this follow-up for 2 weeks on television in 1984? And
guys who won the title used to be presented as a big deal, even if they weren't going to wrestle. It was talked about. Videos were shown, promos were shown. Other guys talked about it. When they showed up, it was a big deal. For Hogan to wrestle on TV, that was a big fucking deal. For him just to appear on TV, that was still a big deal. Swerve, they just throw out there and make him look like shit. The world title means nothing. The world title's never meant less. Swerve's never meant less. And Swerve was just killed as a babyface for Christian Cage. Christian Cage!
No. For the Buckaroos. Because as soon as Cage and company get to the back, they thank the Buckaroos. Good idea, good plan, good. They set it up. So again, we go back to the children are involved at the expense of the brand new world champion. And then we got a shot of the announcer standing in front of the garbage of the wrecked announce desk, which was kind of apropos at this point in the program, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, then Rocky Romero versus Jay White, the light switch. And I'm sorry, but what the fuck? Again, Rocky Romero is actually a very good fucking wrestler, but he's never been featured here. He shows up every once in a while. And so we're pretty sure that Jay White's probably going to beat this guy. And guess what? Jay White not only beat him, but gave him a reverse crossroads and pinned him with one finger on his chest. So what? After a competitive match, this wasn't a job match. It wasn't a squash match. You're supposed to pin the job guys with one finger. But it's taking you 10 minutes or whatever to fucking beat this guy. And then all right. And then you're never going to believe it, Brian. But after Jay White pinned him with one finger, then the Gun Boys get in and they start beating him up. Why? The goddamn deal is when heels get heat after the match, it's because either there's an ongoing bad feeling or issue, or because they got beat and they're mad about it and they want to get even with the babyface. It's not every time that a heel wins a match, whether it's a cold match or any kind of match, that they have to turn around and jump on the guy and start beating him up some more. That's why nobody pays any attention to it anymore. And then They start beating up Rocky Romero and they play music. And Pac walks out to the ring and the heels just leave. And Pac gets in the ring and gives them a dirty look. In Tony's amateur mind, that makes him think that he has heated up this situation with Pac and White and the Guns. It's got to be something. You can't just have a match. Something has to be done. Somebody's got to beat somebody up afterwards. Somebody has to come out. Music has to play. The more, the better, apparently.
And Jay White's been one of the bigger wastes of money in AEW because they thought they were getting a big thing, and whether it's how he's delivered or specifically how he's been pushed and booked and misbooked, as soon as you see him on the show, it's kind of a, at least for me, a bathroom break kind of thing. Let me go take a break. Let me go outside. Let me eat something. I don't need to see this guy anymore. And he does the worst promos for someone who had a reputation for being a good promo. They had this guy beat the world champion months ago. Do you remember that?
Yes. When they brought him in, remember we said, why? The thing, Gin and Juice, him and old Juice Robinson, good tag team. That could have been a wonderful heel team to work with FTR. Juice had the personality that Jay White doesn't have, and they were good together. We saw the best modern match of all fucking time, or whatever everybody called it, FTR and these two, was fucking fabulous. But they, from the start, tried to make us think that Jay White was a world title contender, and they gave him these long interviews where he said nothing in that annoying voice. And people, instead of pushing him and Juice as a team, and they probably would have got over, people quickly said, well, fuck, more Jay White? Jesus Christ. And then they just zoned out on it. And he's not a top single guy, but he could have been in the top tag team. So that they've just, and now what, I don't know what the Guns' attachment is to this fucking guy that, is not really doing anything and probably ain't going to. Why are they hanging around him? They could latch on to somebody more successful. Whatever. What about the next match, Brian? Jericho and Big Bill against Mo Jabari and Harlan Abbott. And I am not making those up or having fun with it. Those were really the names that they were announced by. And I skipped this whole thing.
Yeah, they weren't the problem. The problem is Chris Jericho is doing one of the lamer things he's done, which is saying a lot. And now he's got Big Bill, who showed promise and potential in the fucking jerk-off role, where Jericho always has some jerk-off who, in character, believes all the stupid shit he's saying and goes along with it. And he's trying to lead into the fact that everyone knows that Chris Jericho sucks now and they're booing him. But I don't think he understands why they're booing him. And this is bad. And, we'll get to the ratings. Jay White drives people off the show. Jericho has caused people to fucking jump overboard more lately than anyone. People don't want to see Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho wants to see Chris Jericho.
Well, they did a promo afterwards. And
he's like The Rock minus all the success.
Well, that's a good way to put it. Or he's like anyone minus success.
Well, he's got some money. He's got Tony's dad's money.
We didn't say he didn't have any money. He just doesn't have any success. Apparently, the point that I got out of the end of the thing was Hook's going to be back next week. So, boy, you better watch your P's and Q's. Then the main event finally came up. And it was Edge versus Brody King. And I'm at this point, I'm like, last week we had Edge versus Buddy, and Buddy is the best of the bunch, and I don't need to see Edge against the fat tattooed indie guy after I've seen him against fucking, a poorly named, miscast, held down talent. But I did have an observation. If this was 1986, Brody King would be the Angel of Death, Dave Sheldon. What do you think?
That's an interesting comment. In 86, Dave Sheldon would end up in World Class. We would end up UWF World Class. That's a wrestler I have not thought about in a long time.
Well,
Wow.
here's the thing. I liked Dave Sheldon. He's a very nice guy, wonderful guy to hang around with in the locker room. But the point is, he was a big guy who didn't have a great body, but he was big, and he had a striking look in his face, and he couldn't really talk, and his matches weren't the best, but if you stuck him in a group of heels with somebody that could talk and a few people that could work, you know, he looked good in the fucking group, and you could get something out of him, and you could point at him, and you could say, this guy's going to kick somebody's ass. But he never really got over.
Yeah.
And he never drew any money.
He always looked much badder until he got physical. Just standing there, he looked like the guy you wouldn't want to fuck with in a bar.
Yeah, and that was true. But he couldn't really, you know, carried off in the ring, and then he got out of wrestling. I don't know whatever happened to him, but that in a smaller territory, you'd be more likely to try to push him because you had limited options, and in a bigger territory, there was guys that could do these things a whole lot better. And I think that's Brody King. He's the Angel of Death. But they had a match here that lasted about a day and a half, and in some fact, Brody King got juice and bled all over the place, and they had one nice spot going into the finish where Edge speared Brody King's on the apron, and Edge runs and spears through the ropes and spears him off the apron through a table onto the floor. But that did require some fucking timing. Edge almost broke his right arm. You can go back and look at it. And you can see that as he was headed down that way, he put his arm out, which wouldn't you, to avoid hitting the table face first, and he could have broke his arm easy as anything. But that wasn't the finish, because then he had to roll him back in the ring and spear him in the ring. 1, 2, 3. And then Brody King attacked Edge. What was I just saying? This is where that if a heel's going to attack a babyface, this was the right place for it, because the babyface had won and the heel was mad, but they'd just done the same goddamn thing in the previous match. Anyway, Brody King throws bad fake punches at Edge, and Kyle O'Reilly hits the ring and starts a comeback, and Edge joins it, and they shit can Brody King to the floor. And at this point in time, it's 10 o'clock, and we've still got some show to go. As usual, they're going to run over, but this time, Brian, I told you, I set my DVR because I was actually watching this fiasco as it happened, because I believe I mentioned that the following morning I actually got to go out in public and do some things and didn't want to clog my morning up and put myself in a bad mood. And I saw they were going up on 10 o'clock, so Modern Family was the program that was supposed to follow this presentation. And I hit the DVR and taped it just in case I was going to flummox up, but I saw the overrun is what I'm saying. And by the way, do you know what they did? They joined Modern Family in Progress. If I was a goddamn Modern Family fan, I would say, what the fuck, right? The whole premise is already set up. They went 10 minutes over. Anyhow, at 10 o'clock, they had a goddamn pre-taped interview with Mercedes Moan. And this was a quote. She said, "We are only just 18 days away from my in-a-ring debut for AEW. And first of all, put your fucking hands down. Why has she got her goddamn hands? We've seen the rings that spell out money talks or whatever. Put your goddamn hands down. It looks ridiculous and unnatural. Why are you standing that way constantly? Secondly, go to acting school. Or thirdly, hire you a writer to write some. Oh, I forgot. Alexandra Pepperday is writing this shit. What the fuck? They spent money for this girl to do promos on this TV and she can't talk. And she's still, even though we've just established that she's a heel and the people were booing her last week, she's doing a promo that kind of sounds like she thinks she's a babyface. Your thoughts?
She's a horrible promo, and the run in AEW has been a disaster so far. And she appears to be one of these people a lot more comfortable doing a pre-tape in the back than out there in front of the fans. Why is she always lifting her hands? It's part of her act. And when you watch this, you realize it's an act. It's all an act. It's just a girl putting on a wig and then doing a performance as a character. You don't buy it. You don't believe it. You know, she has a problem with Willow for getting injured in that match. I just saw the footage the other day. She fell off the apron.
Yes, I saw that too. Somebody tweeted it. Willow didn't hurt her. She didn't even hurt herself giving Willow a move. She stood up on the top rope and lost her balance and jumped to the floor and broke her ankle.
So yeah, I don't think this has been good. I don't think anyone's anticipating the debut. I mean, she debuted on TV and she hasn't had a match or anything yet. It's just been these awful promos. And now we finally get to see her have a match, and I don't think anyone's too excited for it.
Well, no, because we've seen these promos first, and if she wasn't cleared, then they should have waited a month to debut her until she was cleared so she could have done one bad promo and then get something out of the fucking pay-per-view match, right? Now that everybody knows that she stinks, they don't really care.
See, she doesn't talk to the fans. She doesn't talk to the viewer. It's just a performance of herself to herself. She's not saying to anyone at home anything that connects with them. It's just all act. And I don't think it's working here at all. And notice it was a pre-tape because I don't know if she was there or not, but there certainly seems to be a difference in her pre-tape stuff and her live stuff in the building. And there may be a reason why we see more pre-tape stuff.
Well, then they probably don't fly her all the way to Edmonton to do that anyway.
That was the old Britt Baker thing. All of a sudden they realized if we have her do pre-tapes in the back, she's a good promo.
Well, anyway, we finally get to the last segment. They're already past 10 o'clock, and out come the Buckaroos with Okody and Jungle Jackoff, the whole Lollipop Guild. They always look ridiculous, but Nikki was wearing Christmas wrapping paper on this one. And then they do the promo, and people aren't caring, and they're not getting a reaction. And Okody speaks a little broken English, and Maddie cuts a promo on Tony. You know, we had no choice but to do what we did because we're going to change the world and save the country or whatever. And they maligned Kenny in Canada and didn't really get any reaction. And they maligned FTR and didn't. And they agreed to the 8-man garbage match, the Anarchy in the Arena. Didn't we used to call that football field fuckery? And they popped a little bit for that because, okay, here's 8 guys in a fucking garbage match where a bunch of furniture will get broke. So, yeah, that's kind of shit we like. And then FTR's music plays and Cash and Dax come out to a small reaction. And they said they knew it wouldn't be easy, but we found 2 guys to be on Team AEW. And Eddie Kingston comes out, people come up for that, and then Danielson, and finally the people are up for Danielson. And they get in the ring and just start the same thing they always do. Face off, fight. Everybody runs out to pull them apart, and we go off the air. So now we have another 8-man garbage match with the Buckaroos' group against some baby faces for the fucking pay-per-view. And they think that will artificially inflate their lack of over. I'm talking about the Buckaroos. And that's what that show was. I mean, what the fuck? It's more and more small time in appearance and in execution. Because like you said, I don't know that they're doubling down on purpose. I think that this is what's left is the indie wrestling minded people are in charge and they actually think this shit is good. And there you go.
And we have a heel stable that no one cares about, featuring 2 of the highest paid guys in the company, and the Young Bucks. We have a babyface team that...
No, wait a minute. 3 of the highest paid guys.
Oh, that's right. Okada, too. We have a babyface team, Team AEW, the team that represents AEW to battle back against this just NWO of the nursery school. I don't know what this is. That's gonna
Nursery Wrestling Order.
And that's going to be FTR, who never, I don't think they've been less over since they got to AEW at all. And now fans kind of groan when they come out. And I could tell you, we've seen the feedback. You've probably seen it too. They've burned out our fans. They burned out the people who listen to these shows, who were their biggest supporters, who were the reasons they got over in the first place. They burned them out. Eddie Kingston. All right. I mean, I could see how maybe he would be on a Team AEW. He won the Continental Classic. He may be good in a match like that. It's a brawl around the arena. Eddie Kingston, okay. Danielson. Eddie Kingston's blood feud opponent. All of a sudden, he's out there now, part of the heel stable, the BCC.
And also not only one of the more talented in-ring performers in the business, but a guy with a history of concussions. So let's put him in as many garbage matches as we can.
And this pay-per-view's in what, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
You know, it's not a winning team in AEW right now. Behind the scenes, and certainly what's on TV, it doesn't feel like a winning product. It doesn't feel like a winning team. And these guys can go out there and talk about how much they love AEW all they want. Everyone understands what reality is, except for seemingly the people who want to drink the Kool-Aid in AEW and Tony Khan. And all the problems in AEW, it all stems back to Tony Khan. This was all built, not as a business, but so that Shad Khan's son could finally have fun with his hobby. And look at the decisions that have been made. Look at the state of the product. Listen to their fans and how excited they aren't. And it's a train wreck. And by the way, how's it going to change? Tony going to step back as Booker? Okay, let's imagine that happens. Who's replacing him? Danielson? No, thank you.
Alexandra Pepperday.
Pepperday, no thank you. Danielson, no thank you.
Will Wheaton.
QT Marshall? Who's going to replace him? Will Washington. Will Washington's one of the core people involved in all the Swerve stuff.
Oh, boy.
How's that working out?
What's he got against Swerve?
It's his cousin.
Oh, well, fuck. They sure ain't kissing cousins, because you'd have to hate a motherfucker to book him like that.
It's easy to point to guys like us and say, you're the problem. Just love wrestling. Just accept that wrestling is wrestling and love all of it, no matter what. There's a real fucking loss of reality when it comes from AEW. AEW can't accept reality in 2024. And right now, it is a sinking ship that nobody believes in.
And I'm going to say this one more time for the cognitively deficient out there that don't get, because Cornette hates him. I've said this from the start. I will repeat it for the people who haven't picked up on it yet. Not the cult of Cornette members out there, but the stray outsiders that we get trying to listen to the program and understand the words coming out of my mouth when they don't pay close attention. This was our chance. This was everybody's chance. The reason we are so mad about the shitty AEW product and the shit job that Tony's done with the whole thing is not because we dislike him personally or we didn't want anybody to get paid, but because this was our chance to have another wrestling promotion with real television and real talent on the roster and a mainstream profile. Even if we're not mad at the WWE anymore because the goddamn, elderly billionaire pervert is gone and it's a new day, that doesn't mean that we want to see the WWE goddamn product exclusively and only for the rest of our lives. We wanted our sports-based wrestling presentation that turned out to be a goddamn indie-rific mud show extravaganza with a bunch of little jack-offs friends. But what we were promised and what we were hoping for is not what we got, and that's why I'm pissed off, because I won't live long enough to see somebody get a chance to do it again. If they ever do, maybe none of you will live long enough, because nobody's going to come along with the stupid amount of money that Tony had at his disposal and get these after this, especially once you've shit the bed on a national television stage, a lot of these networks are going to go, oh, we don't want any wrestling besides the WWE because, yeah, that other one had all the bells and whistles and a billionaire behind it, and it fucking tanked and the ratings went down. And this was our chance to have another wrestling promotion, and this is the one that Tony gave us. That's why I'm pissed. He had the money, the means, and the connections to do something that nobody else would have been able to do, and something that everybody could have been proud of. He didn't have the common sense to realize that he couldn't fucking do it. He could pay for it. He could make it happen. He would have been the hero to everybody. But he tried to goddamn fulfill his childhood fantasy, and instead of wanting to be a double knot spy or a fucking astronaut, he wanted to be a booker and a promoter. And he booked and promoted the talent that he likes, that he liked on the indies, that he liked on the E-Feds, that he liked when other people that were in their fucking basements, instead of going out and getting a blowjob, would give him good feedback on. And so this is what we got. Children's Outlaw Wrestling. Cow.
And I just get upset because the people who know better, who still pretend on social media, who don't want to call out Tony Khan.
Well, but this is wrestling. There's always going to be people that are going to take his fucking money.
It's not just people take his money. It's people that, really just don't want to call him out for one reason or another. And, I think if you look at the outside interests outside of the patent, outside of Flexingate for the Khan family, did he just buy a bunch of businesses to put his kid in charge? And how many of them have actually done well? We've seen a recent thing. I saw Dave Meltzer put this up, and it was astounding how dumb this was. That Tony was a billionaire on his own, and that his analytics company is a major player. He's not a billionaire. Everything he has is because his dad just handed it to him. What has he taken that his dad gave him and made bigger or better? What sports franchise does he work with where he's not openly mocked by anyone who knows anything about that franchise? It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And we all have to pretend because he's a really big fan, and he is a big fan. He just doesn't understand it, and he thinks he does. But that was AEW Dynamite.
It sure was. And this is your show.
Well, let's end with the ratings here of this week, Jim. Well, Jim, let's go to these ratings. AEW Dynamite on TBS, May 8th, 2024, from 8 to 10:08 p.m., on average, was watched by 711,000 viewers.
Remember, it was just a couple of months ago that I would always say, okay, what's the number? 800 and what thousand?
It was a big deal maybe a year and a half ago when they dropped below 900.
And now I'm saying, okay, what is it? 700 and what thousand? So here we are at 711, baby. Boxcars, big bennies. That's an old Abbott and Costello routine.
But again, a lot of competition, and I'm a great example this week because I would have watched the AEW show live, but they chased me off with their bad show, and I went to watch the Knick game. So when you always hear about the strength of the NBA, how many of those people are people that were going to watch the NBA no matter what? And how many were people that were wrestling fans going to give the wrestling show a chance? They're like, nah, fuck this. I'm going somewhere else.
They do the NBA playoffs every year. We made that comment, but also for the first time almost ever, I didn't watch the thing live. I waited till about 8:30 so I could still zip through commercials and fucking slow spots, but I watched it on Wednesday night, as I mentioned, so I could have a pleasant Thursday morning. But nevertheless, we got 711 as the main number. Where'd we start and where'd we finish? You do the dirty work here. You read it out. I don't want to do your dirty work no more.
All right, there was no reason to sing, but we have these numbers. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. 8 to 8:15 p.m. quarter one, the Adam Copeland backstage promo, and Orange Cassidy versus Trent Beretta with picture-in-picture, 768,000 viewers.
And that's what I said. They've killed the Big Bang Theory's ratings. They used to get 1 million. They used to get 900,000. They at least had some amount of people handed off to them. Now the fucking Big Bangers have said, fuck it, we're going to tune out 30 minutes early just so we don't accidentally see any of that wrestling program.
Well, quarter two, 8:15, 8:30 p.m., more of that wrestling program, the continuation of Cassidy versus Beretta, the post-match with Don Callis and Chris Statlander, the Elite's angle, or arrival, whatever it was, the Jack Perry promo, an ad break, Kenny Omega's hospital promo, and the start of Serena Deeb on the ramp. 696,000 viewers.
Ew, okay. So we asked that question earlier. How much can you stand of old Pockets? After 15 minutes of Pockets, and then the Buckaroos show up, they lose 72,000 people.
Well, we go to quarter three, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m., the continuation of the Deeb ramp promo and the confrontation with Toni Storm, the beginning of Mariah May versus Harley Cameron with picture-in-picture, 731,000 viewers.
Holy so
he really did run them off. That's the point.
He not only ran them off, but when they thought the coast was clear, they came back.
For Serena Deeb on the ramp.
Yes. The worst thing they could have come back for. 31 to 35,000 of them came back, half of what they had lost. So how many people made it through the Serena Deeb address to the nation?
Quarter four, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The finish of May versus Cameron with the post-match with Saraya and Mina Shirakawa. That's how you say it.
Kissy girl.
Pac and the Bullet Club Gold's backstage angle, Malachi Black's video, an ad break, a recap, and Swerve Strickland's live promo begins. 724,000 viewers.
So they stayed about flat. They only lost 7,000. Not bad. To get to their average, they apparently there's going to be a precipice here shortly, but well, what did the top of the 9 o'clock hour do with the new world champion in the ring?
The big 9 o'clock hour, quarter five, I'm going to tell you this in advance, both the overall number and the key demo number are both in line or slightly above the trend line for this quarter. 9 to 9:15 p.m., Swerve Strickland's confrontation with Christian Cage and the Mogul Embassy turning on him, Willow Nightingale's backstage promo, and Rocky Romero versus Jay White with picture-in-picture, 787,000 viewers, and 369,000 in the key demo. That's the high point of the key demo.
And that's also the high point of the show.
Yes.
And
to see Swerve get his ass kicked.
To see Swerve emasculated, neutered, his testicles sliced from him and shoved in his own fucking mouth. Well, it's good to know they got a big number when it counted. Oh my God. All right.
We go to quarter six. Let's see how much more counts. Quarter six, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. The continuation of Romero versus White, the post-match with the Gun Club and Pac, Samoa Joe's video, an ad break, and the Big Bill and Chris Jericho match starts. 718,000 viewers.
So again, now they're down another 69,000 after their high point, and that's the second lowest number so far in the program.
Well, the Chris Jericho match continued into the next quarter.
I have a feeling that record's about to be broken.
Quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m., the continuation of the Big Bill Chris Jericho tag match, Jericho's live promo, an ad break, and the start of Adam Copeland versus Brody King with picture-in-picture, 665,000 viewers.
Oh, and we have a new low, and they just lost another 53,000 people, making it 122,000 over the course of 30 minutes. And Edge is in the biggest mainstream star they currently now have on the roster. And he's got the low point so far.
Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of been exposed too. Quarter 8, we have an overrun also, 9:45 to 10 p.m. Continuation of Copeland versus Brody King with picture-in-picture on the post-match with Kyle O'Reilly. 628,000 viewers, 266 in the key demo. And finally, 8-minute overrun Mercedes Moné live promo, the Elite Jack Perry promo in confrontation with FTR, Eddie Kingston, and Bryan Danielson. 654,000 viewers.
And that was basically, 26,000 people that were expecting Modern Family. Wow, all right.
So
well,
again, show wide. You know, the beginning of the show, you have Orange Cassidy's feud with the Best Friends. That's not resonating with their people. That's not working. Then you have the women's stuff. That actually recovered a little bit from the Orange Cassidy stuff.
Yeah.
Swerve, this right now is the time. They have to figure out what they're going to do because he's about to become a big missed opportunity. The fans chose Swerve. Swerve has something that he's quickly losing week by week, but they came back for that. Jay White causes people to turn off their TV. Chris Jericho in 2024 causes people to turn the channel.
Sometimes it causes people to sell their television, I think. That may be the cause of the drop in television viewership, not cutting the cord or streaming, but Chris Jericho.
Adam Copeland versus Brody King. You could put Adam Copeland against Moses right now. Nobody wants to see Adam Copeland. He's exhausted everyone.
Hey, now I'll tell you what, Moses has been booked strong, though. He's still a fucking name.
Yeah, no, he's a bigger name. Adam Copeland, I think, has made people sick of his matches. These long, exhausting matches where the crowds go silent. And it's not working. And Edge was a big star in WWE. Edge is not a big star in AEW. Or Adam Copeland's not a big star now. I don't know how you want to say it, but it's not working. And then finally, Mercedes Moné, that's bombing.
Woo.
And then the Elite's big angle with Team AEW. Because when you think of AEW, the first names you think of are FTR, Eddie Kingston, and Bryan Danielson. That's got no one. No one said, you know what? I got to see what's going on with this game. Let me turn back for a few minutes just to see how they're going to resolve any of this. Nobody does. Not to compare anything to Vince and Austin, but if they were doing something with the owner of the company and a top heel, they would probably make it so that you kind of had to tune back in to see something.
Yeah.
AEW doesn't do that. You never have to tune back in to see anything. And those are the ratings.
They certainly are.
And whose show is this? This is my show.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, you know what? One last thing here, Jim. We have star ratings that have come in for WWE Backlash, the show we just reviewed in France. Well, we weren't in France, but they were.
Yeah, the tortured syntax. We did not review the show in France. We reviewed a show that took place in France.
These are Dave Meltzer's star ratings. Let me get your thoughts. The listeners have been sending it over. The Bloodline versus Kevin Orton and Randy Orton. That's...
Wait. Kevin Orton and Randy Orton, are the Orton brothers now a team?
The Bloodline consisting of Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga versus Kevin Owens and Randy Orton.
0-0.
4 3/4 stars.
What the we liked the match. Remember, I liked the match. I said that was a heck of a fight. But again, it's not goddamn levels of Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid or Flair and Steamboat Revolutionary Classic once in a lifetime. Holy shit, I've never seen anything like that. Is he just afraid of hurting anybody's feelings?
Well, the next match, Jim, the match you skipped, Bayley versus Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton, 4.5 stars.
What?
Now, we didn't see it, so maybe it was a classic.
But... again, it outdid everything in the Kurt Angle catalog, I guess.
The next match, Damian Priest versus Jey Uso, 3.5 stars.
Well, and now we're starting to see that he does, have some self-awareness, Uncle Dave, that he can't just give everything 4.5 because we do have eyes. So he downgraded that one a little bit just to make it look good.
Bianca and Jade Cargill, or Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus the Kabuki Warriors, 3 stars.
I mean, we're starting to get more into realistic thought thoughts and criticism here because I like Jade and Bianca as a team, and I mentioned that. I like the way that they look together, even they're wearing the same color, but at the same time, it's a little of their own fashion. They look physically dominant. They look like stars. Jade's got the entrance that I don't like about Bianca, and Bianca's got the experience to cover up for little Jade's greenness. But, you know, on the old days, on the regular star scale, wouldn't that have been about a 2-star match? It's right in the middle. It didn't stink. It wasn't great.
I agree. And I think Dave kind of seems reluctant, specifically since the start of AEW, to give any matches that aren't. Give any matches, 2 stars, 1 star, dud, any of the traditional things.
Oh, there's no dud anymore, is there? They used to do dud all the time.
And finally, Jim, Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles, 5 stars.
Okay, best match on the show and 2 very talented guys. But again, this was not, I always say Flair and Steamboat, because if you're really, there are no Jerry Lawlers and Terry Funks left anymore. But if you're going to rate, something about a wrestling match, I always think, okay, let's go back and what was an example of probably the best thing ever. You've got your Flair and Steamboat, or some people would go Undertaker and Michaels, or some people would go Bret and Owen Hart or whatever, but I don't think Cody and AJ was at any of those levels. Do you?
I think it was a really good match, but I think the story of the match was the crowd. And again, Dave famously ignored the crowd for the rating of The Rock versus Hogan, which I would give a 5-star match to. But here it's a different story. There's a reason why people kind of dismiss Dave's star ratings nowadays.
Well, yeah, I mean, people always say, oh, wonder what Cornette will have to say about this. I really have the same thing always to say about it. It doesn't change, is that he's delusional and apparently just doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Because, in a lot of cases, these matches that he rates 5 stars are embarrassing, especially when he tries to get into the garbage matches and the fucking furniture matches and the indie-rific bullshit. And, well, it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it was 6 stars. What the fuck is that? I don't know. Anyway, it's all a result of the rutabaga poisoning.
I guess so. I guess maybe the rutabaga poisoning and
look at it. Now think about this. Something has entered his bloodstream that's causing him to turn into a human rutabaga. And that's got to affect your mental cognitive skills, as well as having basically your facial transformation to that of a rutabaga. Rutabaga poisoning.
Well, before we poison anyone any longer, this is the drive-thru. We had songs return last week. We'll have more next week because we had a lot of show here and we are about to do the experience. But follow us wherever you follow us. We're on YouTube and everywhere else. For Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. See you next week. Tally-ho!